Stones. On today's podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Ryan Baudhuin. Ryan is a guy I met actually through Sean back in the day, mainly because of our Fat Fucks for Life group. Going to the casino to eat, and also going to, what's that place? The other buffet that we went to, Golden Corral. Golden Corral.
Which was terrible.
But I don't think we've not necessarily spent a lot of time in person together. I've just been following you ever since those, I met you back in the day, and we went to, met up a couple times with the group. And ever since then, I've kind of been following you through social media. And it's been cool because over the last few years, I've really gotten to see, what, from my point of view, a lot of growth, a lot of personal growth. And I think there's probably been a lot even more that I didn't see earlier from there, and so on. And when I first started thinking about this podcast, I think a solid list of 3-4 people popped up. Sean was one of them, and you were one of them. And I know specifically it was some of the changes I'd seen you represent through social media when you got married, and seeing you become a dad to 2 little girls, and then eventually have your own kid. And that change, it was cool. And it was one of the reasons that you popped in my mind because of also the fact that you were so involved with veterans. And I know you're very much on this side of men's mental health and what it means and how much it matters. So like I said, you were one of the first people that popped up in this list of 3 or 4 guys that was these people would be great to interview. So I'm actually really excited that you're the very last interview I'm getting to do of the year, kind of the last interview of this first season of doing this podcast. And so I'm very excited to have you on. And I think it's going to be a great podcast for people to listen to. So just to kind of kick it off, can you tell people a little bit about yourself and your background and stuff?
I grew up in northeast Wisconsin, in Sturgeon Bay, just north of Green Bay, little small town of 9,000. Pretty typical middle class upbringing. Didn't have to struggle for anything, but didn't have, weren't wealthy, but had a good, comfortable life. Graduated high school, joined the Marine Corps, November 20th, 1999. Went right to boot camp, 2 days after high school graduation, and was pretty much cruising through my time in the Marine Corps when September 11th happened, and then shit got real fast. A lot of my story is struggles with substance abuse. We can go back to that day. That's when I was already drinking, and then you do a combat deployment, you come home, and a lot of people are struggling with mental health. So alcohol was definitely a major crutch and self-medication thing that was going on in my life post-combat. Got back from Iraq, went to school at UW-Milwaukee, and pretty much just did the typical, let's get through college, let's party, let's have fun, played rugby, got a history degree, taught high school for a year, and then I took a job with the federal government. That's where everything really started going downhill. When you're in college, everybody's drinking, especially at college in Wisconsin. And when I got to my normal job, I didn't stop drinking. I was struggling with PTSD. Summer of 2011, lost both my parents 2 months apart to cancer. And the spiral started. I was so lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't want to work the job I was at. And by the grace of God, I had hunted. I wasn't a hunter. I was introduced to a veterans hunt in October of 2011, Horicon, Wisconsin. I didn't want to go. A buddy of mine from the Marine Corps told me, hey, you're going. I know what's going on in your life. You need to get out here and just be with the guys. And that is the blueprint. The hunt doesn't matter. The hunt is the setting. The outdoors is the setting, which is a great place to find peace and tranquility. But you're with other guys that have similar experiences. Went on that hunt, and by the spring of that following year, I quit my job and picked up a camera to take pictures of ducks that were migrating north. You can't hunt them in spring, but the male ducks are all plumed out. So they're just beautiful. They're putting a show on for breeding season. Taking pictures, and got noticed online. Somebody said, hey, your pictures are awesome. I know you like to hunt. Do you know how to film? And I had no plans whatsoever to film. It wasn't even on my radar. I just wanted to take pictures of ducks and hunt. And I said, well, no, but my equipment does it. I'm a quick learner. went to YouTube college for a couple of weeks, did some tutorials, and next thing I know, I'm all over the country following around and being in front of the camera, behind the camera, editing, doing the whole 9 yards for a network television hunting show. And we did 4 seasons with that. At the end of that period, I'd kind of realized that, like, okay, this is cool. I've built my following. I really exploded on social media. What I want to use my platform. I want to use my network that I've built and put on hunts for vets, because that's what pulled me out of the shit. That's what pulled me out of a period of time where I mean, it was not good, and give that to other people. And over the last 5 years, been running High Point Adventures. We've got board members all over the country. I mean, we're spread out. We have a lot of reach, putting events on probably 5 to 10 a year. And it does not mean my struggle with alcohol ended, though. I mean, that has been a battle that I've recently made a lot of headway with. So. Okay.
So just to kind of go back, so you're like 42?
I'll be 42 in February.
42. So you were born like 81?
82.
82. Okay. And yeah, you kind of like, you went to high school during the 90s, during like that period of time. This stuff wasn't talked about at all.
Yeah.
For you with drinking, like, did it start pretty early in high school? Kind of like,
I mean, sophomore year. I mean, I think it started a little bit peer pressure, but I noticed from an early age that I didn't drink to socialize. I drank to get drunk, and I mean that I liked the feeling, and it was last one up, balls to the wall until I passed out, and I've never really been able to. I mean, they say drink like a gentleman. I can't. And I know that. And when you finally say the words, I am an alcoholic, I mean, that it's liberating in a way. Because, I mean, you know, but you just don't want to, like, there's a stigma to it. And you know, now in my journey, I'm a grateful alcoholic. I'm grateful I went to the bottom, because waking up, I mean, I get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning now, and like conquering a day without it, little things. My son crawls in bed with me, like, 5 in the morning, we turn cartoons on. None of that would have existed. So I'm grateful to have been in such a dark place that the simple little things now are amazing.
So before, like Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, obviously drinking's big in Wisconsin. It's even bigger in smaller counties and smaller high schools where there's not much else to do. There's not much else around. Yeah. So people drink a lot. So outside of it kind of being a bit of a pressure, did you recall having mental health problems that were starting to like arise in high school that made you want to fall towards that?
No, I don't think it was anything to do with mental health at that point. I was a pretty confident young man. I didn't have any problems. Like you're 15, 16 and there's a meal on the table and the bills are paid. And I mean, you got an Xbox, or I mean, it was PlayStation back then. I mean, we had everything. I mean, there was no struggle. So like, I don't think that arose from mental health. I don't think there was any signs of that. No signs of depression, no signs of anxiety. I mean, just kind of just going through life pretty easy. So, I mean, it was more an attraction to alcohol, which, there's genetic precursors, there's environmental precursors, and there's just people that like, from the get-go, because it's so seen as normal in Wisconsin, I didn't think anything of it. Until now, like looking back, I'm like, whoa, like.
Especially even like the idea of like having a couple of drinks a night, just like a nightcap, like that idea in Wisconsin is it's so accepted. Like, yeah, most people, you come home from work, you might have a couple of drinks, you might have a couple of beers just to relax at the end of the night. And nobody thinks much of it, or nobody thinks anything wrong with it before like it can become enough of a problem that you say, well, could you not have those 2 drinks when you go home? And you're like, well, no, like I can't not have those drinks. And now you start to realize there's a dependency there.
Yeah.
It's like, is that kind of like how it built up for you at first? Or did it kind of come crashing hard because of enlisting and then kind of what you went through with enlisting?
I mean, it was definitely a crescendo up to the point of coming home and then losing my parents. I mean, that's when things were out of control. I mean, I guess I would always just look at it like, okay, you drink too much. But, my dad would come home from work. He would have 2 Manhattans. That's all booze. I mean, a little tumbler, and he'd read the paper, and Mom would have dinner, He'd come eat dinner, and he'd have 2 more, and he'd go to bed, and he'd be up at 3 in the morning, and he'd go run 3 miles, like completely functioning. And I was functioning at a high level for a very long time, and until I wasn't. You know, like I never was much of a wake up and drink type guy, but I mean, talk to people, you know, that have had similar struggles, and they say like, well, you're not a morning drinker until you are, and it's a progressive. You know, some people want to debate disease or whatever it is. I mean, there's something there. I mean, if you're getting to the point where you're drinking in the morning, like something's up, you know.
So before your parents passed and kind of things like really spiraled for you, would you would have just said, yeah, I drink, but it's not a problem, and like you would never looked at it as a problem, just I drink, whatever, everybody does it. And like, was there ever any like idea in your mind or shadow of a thought in your mind that, hey, I like need to quit drinking, or maybe I need to cut down drinking, before it became a thing that spiraled so much
Well, before
further?
my parents died, I knew that I had a problem, but as long as I was, you know, going to work, paying bills, I mean, your rock bottom is an elevator. It's very relative to who you are and what's going on in your life. And you know, some people are like, well, I'm not homeless, or I'm not the guy with a paper bag on the street, or I'm not divorced. Well, I mean, got married, I'm not divorced, got divorced. Like things start adding up where like, you know, it's a problem. You're just not classifying it as alcoholism yet. You're just like, I drink too much, you know, maybe I should cut back. And being a progressive disease, you can cut back for a while. You're always going to leapfrog back to where you were and push your bottom.
Okay. Okay. So when your parents passed and things spiraled, what like consumption went up? And was it like, were you already consuming daily and that consumption daily went up, or did you go to start consuming daily at that point?
I was probably drinking daily before they got sick. Um, I mean, it was 2 months to the day, mom dying to dad dying. And I mean, that is a whirlwind.
2 months.
Yeah. I mean, it was, you know, I've got siblings, I've got my parents' home to deal with, their assets. I'm still working a full-time job. I don't remember a lot of that. I mean, there's trauma there too that, you know, some people don't remember the actual trauma. It was trauma for 3 months of just like, this isn't happening. Like, I mean, that is, it was a nightmare. And for my siblings too. I mean, they were drinking more, but I don't think they were at the level I was at. I was already on my way there when that happened. You know, and you know, wherever they're at, I mean, that's their own personal decision as to, you know, how much they drink, how much they should or shouldn't drink. I mean, I'm not here to, my problem isn't their problem until they come to me. But I knew that like I was already there. I just didn't want to label it.
How many siblings do you have?
I'm the oldest, and then my sister's 3 years younger than me, and my brother's 3 years younger than her.
Okay. Okay. Now, would you say like your time in the military, did it, you know, Marine Corps, like there's a lot of extreme things that come to being a Marine, and the things you go through and the things you do. And do you think like any like that extremeness from that like fed into this, you know, like,
Oh, first, I'm going to throw the Marine Corps under the bus. It is machismo, bravado, alcoholic. It's the biggest drunk gun club in the world. It is what it is. I mean, you throw 18 through 25-year-old men who are all alphas, and you train the shit out of them for a whole week, and then they're frustrated, and then now let's go let loose. But we're also Marines. Let's go fight. And I mean, that's there. I mean, that is, you know, you're not allowed to smoke pot in the military. Well, that's not the problem. The problem is alcohol. But I mean, it's so accepted as a vice in mainstream culture. It's not going to go away.
because if you still got up, you did your PT and you,
Oh, dude, when we'd line up, and this is weekdays. So you're in formation, you're getting ready to PT, ready to run, and all you would smell is whiskey. Like, I mean, just every guys would be vomiting and just, but you're 20, you know, you're a machine, you know, like you can get up and do that. Like now, if I got wasted and you wanted me to run a half mile hungover, nope. You know?
so, okay, so that definitely 100% then fed into,
Oh yeah.
like progressing, you're drinking further to the point where like what you look at as normal just kind of kept moving up in that sense, right?
Yeah.
Through the Marine Corps. And then you went to college after the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And in college, again, you're in Wisconsin, college,
And playing rugby.
and playing rugby. So,
A drinking culture.
which rugby players, big drink. So like that probably just kept pushing like what normal was even further for you.
Yeah.
And again, at that point, you kind of knew you were drinking a lot, but you probably still didn't necessarily think of it as a problem as much as just,
This is what I do. This is what the people around me do. This is what the subcultures around me do. Wisconsin, Marine Corps, rugby, college in Wisconsin. Everywhere I'm around, it's normalized. It's romanticized. Yeah, that dude got so wasted last night. You know, he punched the door. Like, you know, that's what people talk about. Like it's normal.
I mean, the way we share war stories from drinking in Wisconsin, it seems a little messed up sometimes. Yeah. So through this time, like through the Marine Corps and into college, was mental health becoming a more, cognizant thing for you? Like, yeah, like there's some mental health problems going on right now, or, how much of it, I guess I'm saying, came out once your parents got sick, and how much of it was already kind of coming out prior?
I think there was major PTSD issues. Again, the machismo bravado of the Marine Corps. Years later, guys still come to me and they're like, "Hey, I'm having issues and not sure if I want that on my record." Maybe they're a cop or a firefighter, and they don't. I mean, I know guys have gotten fired for somehow they get, despite HIPAA and all the stuff there, somehow it gets to the boss, and we can't have that. So I mean, there's a negative stigma there with PTSD, and you see yourself as weak. So like there was definitely a lack of acceptance for. I didn't even go get diagnosed until I would say it was probably 5 to 7 years after I came back from Iraq. I didn't want anything to do with the VA. I didn't want anything. I'm like, nope, I'm good. Like I'm fine. I'm dominating life. This does not affect me. I mean, the rules do not apply. The status quo does not apply to me. I mean, I've done that a lot in my life, and weird. Then it comes back and smacks you in the face. You're like, ah.
So through like those 5-6 years, was the PTSD making things worse and harder, just like incrementally over time? And you must have kind of gotten to some little bit of a breaking point where you decide, I need to go see somebody for this.
Remove alcohol for a second. Remove substance abuse of any kind for a second.
Okay.
With PTSD, relationships, whether they're intimate or friendship, I didn't care what, who I get punched in the face. If we're not friends anymore, burn the whole fucking place down. Like, I mean, the amount of, for lack of a better term, womanizing. I mean, I wasn't looking for anything because I did not have the emotional maturity yet to get into a relationship that meant something. I mean, I got left the day I left for Iraq, and that a lot of women suffered for the decision of one person. So I mean, there was definitely issues to where like I was just I was an asshole because of what I was dealing with PTSD wise and not addressing it. I don't think I went in until other guys were saying like, hey, like if you go in and they rate you for this, then you get a monthly stipend. And it wasn't about treatment at that point, which I mean, I've never thought about that until right now. I did not go in because I should go in, clinically. I went in because, hey, like the VA will pay you monthly for whatever conditions you have. And I was like, oh, beer money.
Okay.
And now I'm glad I did because, that started this whole process of getting here. I mean, getting into a recovery mindset. I mean, as long as it takes what it takes, but we're here now.
Now, a lot of people, they know what PTSD now is, like what it is nowadays. Like we hear about it more, it's more accepted for it to be talked about, and we realize how big of a problem it can be and how like debilitating it can be for somebody going through it. Can you kind of like give a little bit more information about what it is, what it's like going through it on like a more like, if you're having an episode where like that it's really coming on and it's hitting you hard, like what is that like for you, or what was that like for you back in the day? Obviously you probably, I'm sure, like carry a lot of anger, and like
irritability is a big part of it. But I mean, so PTSD is a separate diagnosis from anxiety, which is a separate diagnosis from depression. Depression is dwelling on the past, and that leads to a sadness, and anxiety is worried about the future, which leads to like, just like a severe uneasiness, and PTSD is a mix of all of it. So there's a lot of interlocking symptoms between all the diagnoses. I mean, I would look at the I think it's the DSM is the diagnosis manual, and like PTSD is everything, minus schizophrenic levels of but severe PTSD. Sometimes people will have voices and stuff. I never got to that level of things. I've actually never seen anybody with that severity, but definitely irritability, proneness to just knee-jerk reactions, public slam your brakes on in the middle of the road because somebody's tailgating you and get out. Like, how stupid is that?
It's like impulsive.
Yeah,
like
very, very impulsive. Impulsive spending, hygiene. Hygiene. I mean, just I remember going like, I hate admitting this, but like going like days without showering or brushing my teeth, and just like, because it wasn't important. You're so like, but you're still trying to convince yourself that's not you. Isolation, crowds. I still, and my wife is cool about it because she took it upon herself to go read and research, and we sometimes take two vehicles to a family function, whether it's her family or mine, because when I've had enough, I'm not being rude. It's not because I don't like anybody. I need to, okay, we're done. I mean, that memory, short-term memory loss. I mean, I think irritability is probably you're just so jaded, and lash out.
Like what you're describing is, I mean, it sounds like it would be insurmountable to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, like looking back, obviously there was alcohol used to deal with it, but like how else did you deal with it? Because I mean,
I have no fucking idea. Like, like I look back and I'm like, how am I here? I was never to the point of they say suicidal ideation. Ideation is the plan. I never had a plan. There's always thoughts. I mean, I think normal people have thoughts of suicide. Not that they're going to act on it. They may be having a bad day, but hey, this is terrible. Like, what if I died? What if I killed myself? Nobody's acting on it, so there's never ideation. But I mean, there was definitely. I got to a point where I didn't care if I lived or died. I mean, recklessness. We can get into it a little bit down the line here in the timeline, but I mean, the major police incident I had, I'd have to look at what even year that was, 2017 or 18. Like I got in an armed standoff with the sheriff's department in Brown County, and I was going to shoot it out because I didn't care. I mean, that's pretty high level of like something's wrong. The normal people don't do that.
Like you're obviously processing something so drastically different than what you consider normal for your brain to be at that point, for you to be at that point.
Yeah.
So, okay. I had a question from there. So on the suicidal ideation part, I mean, you can look back now and you're not even sure how you made it through some of that. So you must feel like as somebody who's made it on the other side of it, and not that there's you're ever going to be cured of PTSD, but
there's no cure.
There's no cure.
But there's treatment, but the treatment's on you. And getting to the point where you're ready can be a decade-long battle. But I mean, when it clicks and it happens, I mean, it is on you every day you're not responsible for your trauma. No one's responsible for their trauma, but you're responsible for doing something about it. I don't know where I read that, but I was like, oh, right there.
So you're at least on the side of it now where you know how to live your life sustainably, and you found some things that work for you. So do you have a very hard time when you still hear about the amount of veteran suicide that happens?
I mean, they say it's 22 a day.
22 a day.
I'm sure it's higher than that.
Yeah.
Especially start throwing Vietnam guys in there. Yeah, I mean, I am to a point where I'm willing and open to put my shit out there. You know, having a following, having a platform. You know, as long as I am credible in walking the walk in sobriety, I'll put everything out there, because I mean, guys do reach out to me, and not just vets. Like, I mean, childhood friends saying like, "Hey, man, I'm struggling with this." Like, all right, you know, this is what I did. Here's other options on top of what, you know. Here's what people say to try. Here's what worked for a guy that I know really well. So I mean, yeah, it's hard to see. It's hardest to see someone who knows they're down and out, knows they're addicted, or knows they're dealing with mental health, and they don't want to do the work. Because I did that for so fucking long that, like, oh, I'm not gonna, you know, do this program because then I have to be sober. I didn't want to be sober for a long time. I mean, even though I knew I was a drunk. That's insanity.
And I mean, that's addiction.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, right? Like, that's textbook addiction. Is, you know what you're doing is wrong, but you cannot stop it.
I went to rehabs to appease people, whether it was the court, whether it was a wife, ex-wife, siblings, Marine buddies. Like, I mean, some of them came to me eventually like, dude, like, you're a shit show, and like, you need to do something. And they're supportive, but I mean, I didn't want to. The day that things changed is the day that I had full acceptance. I have a problem. I can't do this myself, and I need to surrender to the disease and say, okay, like, I cannot control this. What now?
So it's almost like a acceptance, like accepting everything for what it is, and deciding what are the steps to move forward.
Yes.
Now, you said that when you did that very first duck hunt after your parents passed, like, that pulled you out of a very dark place.
I'm alive because of that.
A lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Because at that point you were going that fast, that down with your parents passing and having to deal with all that stress on top of the PTSD that was still untreated at that point. Because in 2011, would that have been like, did you go to the VA clinic for the first time, like you said, 5-6 years after?
So it would have been, I got back from Iraq in 2005. Yeah, I would say about 2008, 2009.
Okay.
That would be ballpark.
Okay. And from that, but that duck hunt saved your life and started bringing it out of the hole, but you still continued to struggle, obviously, through the next, like, 7-8 years.
I'd say, so I was looking at the other day. I've got 4.5 months of sobriety right now. If I'm sober a year, it'll have taken me 7 years to get sober a year. I mean, there's periods in there of sobriety. I shouldn't say that. There's periods of abstinence. I think the mindset is completely different. Sobriety is doing the work. Abstinence is just not drinking. And if you're not proactively attacking it every day, I mean, you're not changing yourself as a person, which the underlying issues are what are causing the drinking. I mean, you can get past chemical dependency. I'd say about a month and a half, you start not being drawn to it chemically. But I mean, what else is making you want to go to this? So I mean, I lost my train of thought.
Well, okay, so you said it took you 7 years. 7 years to finally get to this point of sobriety.
Yes.
So prior to 7 years ago, you'd not actually tried to quit necessarily.
I went to rehabs.
Okay.
Inpatient rehabs.
Okay.
I went to VA detoxes, which are prisons. It's the worst. I've gone to outpatient, intensive outpatient. I've gone to a couple different programs. I always put a window on things. I've noticed this most recently. So April, I started the 75 Hard Challenge. I would not be where I'm at mentally right now without that program. So 75 Hard is not a weight loss program. It's not an exercise program. It's a mental discipline building exercise, which was what Andy Frisella calls it, the inventor. 75 straight days, no alcohol. That part was easy in 75 days. That's the weird part about it. 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes each. One's got to be outside, 10 pages of reading, strict diet, a gallon of water. So I did 75 days. On the 76th day, I drank. I knew what I had there when I was court ordered to not drink 9 months. I drank 9 months in one day. When I got to go to a rehab for 3 months, I'll go 90 days, and I'm out of there. And I start drinking. If I put a window on it, like that's what I've noticed. That like, okay, I can make it. They say I can't drink that long, or this is what people expect out of me. I'll make it there, and then I'll drink. And this time, when somebody says you're gonna stay sober forever, I can't promise that. What I do know is I'm gonna stay sober today. And my window's today. I gotta make it through today. And then if I make it through today, I get up tomorrow. My window's today, one day at a time. And that shit works. I've read it a million times, but I never like practiced it. So I finished the 75 hard. I drank on the 76th day. I went on a 12-day bender. I went on a trip to Arizona just to kind of figure shit out. And I climbed up, I was in Sedona, I climbed up Cathedral Rock. Beautiful. I think it rises like 600 feet and a half mile. It's a pretty gnarly climb, but you get up there and you look down over the valley, all these red rocks and colors and sunsets. And something else that I'd read multiple times, in the teachings of people trying to get sober, ask God to relieve you of the obsession. And I was like, this is stupid. I'm standing on top of this mountain, and I was like, God, relieve me of the obsession. I said it out loud. And I'm like, okay. Poof, nothing happened. Like it wasn't like magic. And I got down from the mountain. I called my wife, and I said, I think I'm done drinking. And she goes, I knew you were out there doing something. Like it worked. Then I started 75 hard, just to get back into, because that routine and regimen is what works for me now. Get up at 4:30, go cardio. Now I got a puppy. Get up at 4:30, spend an hour with the puppy, get all the piss and vinegar out of him, feed him, eat breakfast, go cardio, eat again. Work on, do some self-work, readings, teachings, moral inventories, figure out where I'm at, and then go to the gym. I've got all that done by 11 in the morning. So when the sun goes down, I'm too wiped out. I've put the mindset. I start the day, bang, 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 bang. The rest is freaking downhill, easy. We're ready to go. Let's just get through today. Let's get through tonight. Let's start it tomorrow. And it's nuts that it worked.
Did you have some semblance of some of these routines prior?
What's that?
Did you have some semblance of some of these routines prior?
Nah, I lifted all the time. I was never pushing myself.
Okay.
I'd say I went a decade of just going through the motions. Like I'd go to the gym. I'd eat as much as possible. I was getting mentally lazy. And to get that mental discipline, that self-discipline, I hate cardio. Within like 3-4 days, I was like, all right, my legs hurt. Let's do it again. Like there's a hill in our town that goes down to the Fox River, and it's pretty steep. And I would run that thing. I was training for an elk hunt too. Like that was added motivation. But I'd run this hill, and it's brutal. Like it sucked. And people I don't know in our town, we're still rather new to Wrightstown where we live, just south of Green Bay there. And people I don't know would like pull up and be like, how many times you run this thing? I was like, 10. And they're like, okay, this guy's fucking nuts. Daily, or not daily, but 3-4 times a week. I had no routine like that. And the body goals came with it, but it would, everybody that has come to me and said, hey, I want to try this, but I want to do a modification of it. I'm like, no, then don't fucking talk to me. Like, you're committing to this? That's what builds the discipline. That's, who has time to do 2 45-minute workouts a day with 3 kids, with a wife that's mad at you no matter what you did?
I did 75 hard last year.
You love it?
And it was great. It was hard. It's hard. It's hard to stay disciplined day after day. Mm-hmm. And like I did it at a time where we were training for a 50-mile race. Mm-hmm. And on Sundays, we'd go do like anywhere from 20 to 30-mile runs to get ready for this race on Sundays. Yeah. And so I'd go do, like 7-8 hours of running outside with a group of people, and I'd come home feeling absolutely destroyed. And I'd be like, I gotta go do my second workout. Mm-hmm. And like I'd have to either like, I try to do some yoga for 45 minutes in my house, or I go for another 45-minute walk outside, even though not a single muscle or strand in my body wanted to go move another inch after doing 30 miles on a, Ice Age trail, which is just rocky and hilly. I'd feel like crap, but there's something about that when you're like, how I feel doesn't matter if I want to accomplish this goal. So like, there's so much you build up from that you never push yourself that hard till you have like it's almost kind of like you said, like, I think of it the same idea. Like when you said, okay, I gotta quit. I'm in rehab for 3 months, or I'm doing this for this many days. It's easy to like quit for that many days because you have such a hard goal. But those goals are really useful in other aspects where you're like, I would never be going to do a second 45-minute workout on a Sunday, but I said I would do it. And how much that means to you as a man to say, I said I would do something and I'm going to do it, that like builds on itself so much. I thought that was very cool.
And being public about it and doing, and like, which is what I think is why the program catches on and so many people are interested. You put out your successes, and now you're accountable to everybody else that looked at it and said, "Oh, he's doing this. What am I supposed to do?" Like, I quit on 66th day. You bitch,
Right? Like, finish it out.
Yeah.
And like, people. And I mean, we all like to think that like we're posting and people are sitting on the other side of social media being like, you better finish those 75 days.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not, but you feel it. You know that like I posted it, which means I gave public accountability to myself, and now I'm going to stick to it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way about putting my sobriety out there now. Is that it's an extra level of accountability.
That's a very good way to put it. Yeah.
And like, who am I to sit here and run my mouth if I'm not walking the walk? And who am I if 6 months from now I'm drinking again? I mean, I just know that I'm at a different spot now than I've ever been, and it's because I'm doing the work. I've created a program. I didn't create 75 Hard. I've taken aspects of 75 Hard and continued it, and like I'm doing it, and I'm not just abstaining. I'm sobering my mind.
So then, the first time you did the first round of 75 Hard, was this like probably the first time you actively chose not to drink for a period of time, as opposed to like having to go to rehab or having to go detox or maybe possibly court ordered, or were there other times that you had chosen it?
I mean, I had chosen it, but I would last a week.
Okay.
I mean, I never on my own said, okay, I'm done. I'd never committed to myself. I'd never put that commitment out there. I was always like, okay, I guess I'll do outpatient rehab because everybody's mad at me. I mean, it sounds silly, but I mean, that's where I was. I'm like, okay, I'll shut these people up for a while. And now it's like, all right, like, what do you want in life? Doing the 75 Hard the first time showed me what I was capable of. I could not believe what I was accomplishing in a day. I could not believe how my relationships were improving. Because I wasn't seeking the next drink. I wasn't worried about other shit. I was worried about accomplishing and doing and existing and enjoying and being present. So, I mean, I don't think I ever, to fully answer your question, I don't think I ever more than a week on my own chose to quit and to commit to 75 days that was it. That was the ticket.
So now during those first 75 days, there must have been such a level of mental clarity that you reached.
Oh yeah.
So can you like talk a little bit more than about that 76th day and choosing to have that drink?
I knew it. I knew it going in. I knew I was going to do so. I knew I'd finish it. Like, anybody that knows me well will tell you that if I commit to something, like, no matter how crazy it is, I'm going to do it. And as soon as my wife saw that I was fully committed, and she's like, "Oh fuck! I mean, this is going to be," because she had to make sacrifices for me to accomplish it. I mean, hey, I got to go get my second workout in. Kids are screaming; they're not fed. Like, she made sacrifices, but she knew I was going to do it. Choosing to drink on the 76th day, I wanted to celebrate finishing it. That was an excuse to drink. I wanted to, and I knew that as soon as I started drinking, I would go right back to the same patterns, and I did. I mean, I went on a 12-day bender. I mean, I'm talking like drinking 175 or Captain Morgan in 2 days. I mean, I was putting down some booze.
Yeah.
But I also knew that I needed to find a spiritual connection. I knew that 75 days that I just had, the mental discipline, just the level I was operating on daily. How I was improving as a parent, as a spouse, as a person. Just feeling accomplished every day. I knew I wanted that. Going to Arizona, I flew into Phoenix, rented a car, and in 6 days, I went down to Tucson, did Saguaro National Park. Being a photographer, I want to hit all the national parks. Did Petrified Forest. Went up to the Forrest Gump point where he's running and he stops. And then did Antelope Canyon. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's 2 slot canyons on the Navajo res.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm drinking every night, but I'm out there accomplishing during the day. And I did the slot canyon. You have to have a Navajo guide. And I really connected with my guide. His grandfather was a World War II code talker, Marine. The guys that the Japanese could never break the code because they're speaking in Navajo language. And we're walking through these slot canyons. It's beautiful orange and red and sandstone. And this dude busts out this flute. It's a hand-carved traditional flute and starts playing some Navajo tune. But the acoustics in there blew red rocks out of the water. And like the hairs are standing up. Like I knew like I was having some like cosmic, spiritual. I was on this journey. I was finding myself. And then, talking about Sedona, that was it. God relieved me of the obsession. I did this trek and came back home and, got off the plane and as soon as I got up the next morning, let's go.
Did you start the second round right away?
Yeah.
Right, as soon as you're back home then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're now done with that second round?
Yes.
And now you're just continuing
I
on?
finished the second round. The last 4 days around a mountain and I was elk hunting in Wyoming. So we definitely got the 45-minute workouts in, climbing Bighorn Mountains.
Especially being outside in nature. Now, like a big thing I'm trying to think about here is like through your story too, is like, I think a lot of men go through some level of similar journey on the fact that in our early 20s into like our late 20s, like a lot happens and like we have to kind of go from being boys to men through that time.
Mm-hmm.
Our 30s, I think, to me, it's in my early 30s right now, but like I feel like my 30s are like this. We're like now I'm refining the type of man I am.
Yeah.
So for you, would like through some of your 20s and 30s, and this was probably like your late 30s as you like really start to like get on this. You said it's been 7 years of trying to get sober. That like you kind of discovered what's going on. So it's probably like you're 35, maybe right around that time. Like you probably started like
about 35.
decided to like tackle this as like something that needed to get better. Do you think you could have ever gotten to the spot you're at right now in your early 30s? Do you think it was possible for you to get there?
No. I like the phrase, it takes what it takes. And the downfalls, I tell my kids, especially my 2 oldest daughters, I raised them as mine and my stepdaughter, so I wasn't there for the early formations of who they are. And, one of them would be down on themselves, they, failed a spelling test or something just trivial. And I'd be like, look, everything I have in my life is because I fucked up and I failed and then I found what it took. And even my marriage to their mother. My first marriage was an absolute disaster, and most of it was my fault. I don't hold any ill wills. It was I took things, and when I got divorced, I looked in the mirror and I said, it didn't matter anything that she did. What did you do to get your ass here? And those were the things that had to change. They didn't change overnight. It changed over a decade. But you got to fail to learn anything. Look at Michael Jordan. I use that example all the time. Like, what, did he get cut as a junior from varsity?
Yeah.
The best fucking basketball player in the history of the game, got cut from varsity as a junior. Most of these guys are playing varsity ball as a sophomore,
I don't know if this is true, but I feel like I heard this once where like, it's not an argument to that quote, but I guess he got brought down to JV because they knew he was good and just needed more development. And like they cut him down to JV just to help him develop on a JV team.
Yeah.
But I don't know how like true that is because you hear the story a lot.
But still, he got,
But he wasn't good enough to be starting on varsity is the main point. That he needed to develop before he got to be the best. Now, when was that first marriage and divorce? When did that happen?
Oh man, I had to look at timelines.
Like in your 20s? Like
I got married after my parents died.
Okay.
So I got married probably in 2012 or 2013. I didn't last long, and Um, you know, that I was toxic and we were toxic together. No ill will towards her whatsoever. I wish her the best. Um, I wasn't, I mean, I said it earlier in the discussion. I was not emotionally matured yet, and that took a long time. I mean, I feel emotional maturity levels right now that I have never had.
And a lot of that has come from, like, that maturity obviously hasn't just happened with, there's been maturity strides for you probably doing 75 hard, learning what you learned from that, learning how you operated better without the alcohol. But like, what are some of the like other big things that really contributed to that maturity? I mean,
That mental clarity, when you can start looking at things instead of having impulsive, I mean, back to PTSD, impulsive, irrational, irritable, emotional responses, it blows my mind that I can sit back in an argument and be like, okay. And like, you know, maybe this person's having a bad day. And instead of being like, fuck you, you know, like, I mean, it still happens. I mean, I still get to that level of anger. I mean, people that we're human. But the amount of times where I'm not is crazy. But having that mental clarity, I was able to feel feelings again. This is I hate admitting this, but I mean, I want to be transparent and true. The other day, I got in the truck. We had a family Christmas party with my dad's side of the family. We're in Wisconsin Dells, and got there Friday night. So I got my workout in Friday morning. Saturday, I'm looking for a gym. It's all 24-hour gyms that don't have somebody staffing it on Saturday. So I had to drive all the way to Madison from the Dells. It's 40 minutes. And, you know, it's 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'm driving, and Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight, comes on the radio. And I'm, you know, the drum solo. I'm feeling it. Like, I actually was like crying from the music. I was feeling the emotion of the music. And I haven't felt like that. And then I started laughing at myself. I was like, holy shit. Like, I mean, it was okay. It was okay. I was feeling the music. And then that song got over and Adele came on. I was like, nope, we're not doing this. We are not doing this twice.
that feeling of like when you're going through a hard time, but then like you get back to like, you're like, music has like a draw on you again. Like it like draws like a real emotion out of you. I feel like that is it's like a wholesome feeling. Mm-hmm. Like it reminds you like it's almost like you're a kid again. You're like, something as simple as music can make me feel good. Because you don't need something as hard as alcohol to make you feel good anymore, right? Is that kind of like...
I thought for a long time, like, I mean, THC, you know, is to me is music appreciation and a flavor enhancer. But alcohol was the same for me. Like, if you get drunk enough and you're at a concert, like you're feeling it. Like, but I never thought I'd be able to feel that without, you know, some mind altering substance. And I mean, that's why I was crying. I was like, oh my God. Like, I'm not embarrassed of that at all. I was like, holy shit, like feelings. Like, this is weird. Haven't felt this since 5th grade, you know?
Well, have you, with the process of quitting, like, do you feel like when you initially first quit in those first 75 days, like, and I mean, you have had obviously other periods where you quit, but how emotionally numb did you feel during those periods? Where like you're used to getting this thing that lowers...
During the first 75 hard, or during the other periods where I abstained?
And mainly during the first 75 hard, because that's the first time that you really chose to go after it, as opposed to like, I'm doing this for somebody else, I'm doing this for a quarter or whatever it is. This was the first time that you chose to do it for yourself. You did it strictly off your own willpower, strictly off your own desire to do it. That like, was it hard to have like this feeling of... Because I imagine there must be some emotional numbness that first comes on, of like this anhedonia, that like you're used to getting something that makes you feel good, and now you like initially kind of go below baseline, and then your body probably tries to like get back to homeostasis almost by like numbing you for a while. Like, did you go through that?
I'd say the 4th day. I mean, the first 3 days are like, let's just fucking hammer this, right? I'm doing this. There's extreme motivation. I mean, I wasn't really feeling anything emotional. Physicality was fine. But like the 4th or 5th day, like it becomes like part of you. The discipline starts showing up, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to do this. I don't know why, and I've talked to other people who've done it too. They're like, yeah, like fourth to sixth day, like all of a sudden you're a machine. You're motivated. You're internally motivated by your own discipline, and that's been years. Probably since the Marine Corps, since I'd done that, or rugby when I had to put weight on to get a starting position. I mean, I didn't have anything. I wasn't working towards anything, and now that I had direction. What's weird too is when you finish, I mean, that's why I drank on the 76th day. I mean, amongst other reasons. When you finish, then you lack another thing to pursue. And so I'm now constantly trying to find new goals. I'm putting goals on paper too. And it doesn't have to be, some social media challenge or fitness challenge. Hey, I want to spend this much time with my kids this month. I'm taking all of December off. Because I've been on the road since August, bam, 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 back and forth, back and forth. So I mean, putting goals on paper and as dumb as that sounds, just to write them down, I mean, it works.
Now, through that period, like of the first 75 hard, did like cravings come, right? Like you still you deal with cravings. Yeah. Did they get substantially less over time? Did they or do cravings, can they still come out of nowhere and be just as bad sometimes?
Yes.
It's just that you have the better mental tools to not stuff that craving away, because at this point, you don't want to just stuff it away. You want to kind of take it head on and accept it for, it's a craving, it's a disease I have. I'm not just stuffing this disease away anymore. I'm looking it straight in the eyes and I'm trying to.
I'm not avoiding it. I'm not avoiding, I mean, in my family Christmas party, alcohol all over the place. I was just at I've been to Bourbon Street since being sober. Like, I mean, I keep telling myself, my problem is not everybody else's problem. So why should people have to adjust to me? I want you to live your lives. I want you to be able to enjoy yourself. You want to have cocktails? Have cocktails. I'm in hunting camps. I mean, a lot of guys, that's their vacation for the year. They're hunting, but they're drinking too. Like I said, I'm not going to avoid it. And some people can't. I mean, so yeah, if I'm around it, of course, like if you got a beer right there and if it was happy hour, I'd want it. I just can't. I can't have, the first drink's not going to get me in trouble, but the first drink's going to lead to the 100th drink, and I know there's no stop. So cravings do lessen over time. They'll always be there. Somebody referred to it as stinking thinking, and something as simple as I'm on the road, and all right, I got an hour and a half before I get to the hotel. I'm done for the night. I'm gonna go get a steak dinner. Oh, there's a bar at the hotel. I know I can't go to that bar, but your mind goes there. Oh, nobody will know, or maybe I'll just get a 6-pack for the room, or I'll go buy a little bottle of rum. That shit doesn't ever go away. I mean, that is constant. There's always well, what if? I know how it ends, and it ain't good. So, I mean, it's just not having that first drink.
So it's almost like you never really lose that voice that's in your head. It just
a bitch voice. That's what it is.
yeah. I mean, could it be the weaker side of you that wants to just give in to the temptation of what it wants and not just deal with things head on? So that voice you've just gotten better at controlling and kind of putting it in its place.
I mean, there's mindfulness as a tactic that throughout the course of rehabs was my least favorite freaking thing to do. And the mindfulness instructor is always some absolute
hippie yogi.
Yeah, I mean, she looks like she lives in Boulder, Colorado. I mean, they're good people. It's just, I mean, that's okay. Let's breathe in and feel your feet on the ground, feel your breath. And I'm like, this fucking is stupid. And I hated it. And then Bourbon Street, surprising, because the first time that I had mindfulness happened to me. I'm walking down Bourbon Street. I have got 2 veterans that were in Louisiana for an alligator hunt. And I feel like if I do not bring them to Bourbon Street, we're robbing them of the full New Orleans experience. So we went down during the day. I'm also transparent with them. They know what's going on in my life. And hey, let's go. I'll be fine. and we were walking down the street. We got some food, ate some oysters, had a good time. But as we're walking down the street, all the lights, and it's daytime. I think it's a weekday, but I mean, Bourbon Street can be packed.
Stimulating. There's
Yeah.
a lot going on.
That's the thing.
Strippers outside on the street.
Yes.
To come into the dark
I
strip
picked
club.
up on the stimulation. I was walking down the street, and this sounds so stupid, but Bourbon Street smells. It's a sewer. It's underground. I mean, or it's under sea level. So you've got these old cobblestone streets and these old French Quarter buildings, and I was smelling the smells of the baguettes and the sewer, and watching the people, feeling the air. I stuck my hands out and I felt the air come through like a draft in an alleyway, and I'm just like, okay, I guess this is mindfulness. And like it allowed me to be present instead of going like, oh, when's the next drink? When's the next drink? When's the next drink? It did, and that is something that an alcoholic, when they're drinking, or an addict of any sort, you're chasing the next high or the next drink constantly, that you don't become present. You go to a Packer game, look at the average Wisconsinite that goes to a Packer game. All right, we need alcohol for the parking lot. We need to get a drink at this little stand over here before we get in. When we get in, we're going right to the beer stand. Oh, here's the beer guy. Make sure that Joe's in the bathroom. Make sure you get him a beer. It's constantly. I went to a game sober, and I was like, holy shit, like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on here, that even playing football, that I was able to like enjoy and be present and watch.
I mean, I 100%. That's me. Every game I've been to, it's an event. So you want to get drunk, you want to bring the cooler, you want to shotgun a couple drinks while you're tailgating, and then you got to grab a couple with you while you're walking over to check in, so you can kind of pound them quick before you check in, so you get a couple more drinks before you got paid. I've been that guy not many times. I've only probably been to 5 or 6 games, but I've never been to a game and stayed sober the entire time, and I can imagine it is a completely different experience. The way that you take in the environment, the way you're going to be noticing different things instead of just keeping that buzz going, buzz going.
Everybody's rushing to piss at halftime or get a drink right before, I think they stopped selling at the third quarter. But I watched the Lodi 4th and 5th graders, or 5th and 6th graders Pee Wee football game that they play. They're going from the 10-yard line. And these kids are doing the Lambeau leap. And I was having more fun watching them. And then at the end, the kid scored a touchdown, and he grabbed his whole offensive line and had them go do it. And watching these kids jump up into the stands, I was like, oh my God, this is so much fun.
That's awesome.
That's the shit I'd noticed now, that I would have been like, we're going to whatever the bar is. There's a bar that people meet up with at halftime. You miss half the third quarter,
Yeah, or you got to go piss out the 100 ounces of beer that you've drank so far, like in the.
And even people on the way out, that's when it really stuck. I'm walking out with my wife, and the couple that we're with doesn't drink anymore either, and which was random. Like, it was just random. I mean, that's divine intervention right there. Because this was pretty early in my sobriety. We're walking out, people are just puking in a planter, or like guys are like, I'll fight you. And I looked at my wife, I was like, I know the answer to this, but do I look like that? She's like, worse. And I was like, yeah, warranted, And I went home, picked my kid up from his grandma's, and, ate dinner and got ready for the routine the next morning.
How do you deal with I think I've heard this maybe through shows or movies, not necessarily anybody in person, but like, a big hard part for somebody when they accept that they're an alcoholic is the fact that we romanticize those nights of drinking, right? We romanticize how much fun we had. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with this idea that you did have fun when you get drunk, and you did have fun with a group of guys getting drunk while they're like hunting out in the wild? Like, I'm sure they're like, it's easy enough to romanticize that and to then say, well, now it's just not something I do. Mm-hmm. But how do you accept that and come to terms with that in a way that,
oh, that's a tough,
Yeah,
we're always going to romanticize it. That's society. I mean, I've got a million stories that I could tell if I wrote a biography that alcohol is involved, but alcohol is involved. I've never been arrested sober. I've never done anything extremely promiscuous sober. questionably promiscuous sober. I've never, bad decisions and huge blow-ups and everything, pretty much everything that is controllable that's going wrong in my life has been alcohol related. And that's common for a lot of people. We just, okay, well, remember the time that you and I were back to back in a bar fight and we knocked those guys out? I mean, we're talking about it like it's like cool. I mean, I gotta look at, remember the time that I vomited in my sleep and my ex-wife had to roll me over or I would have died. Remember the time that I had the armed standoff with the sheriff's department? Remember the time that, just all the things that are like extreme. I'm comfortable with leaving any good that comes with alcohol behind with any of the bad. And I've gone to a couple events without it and had fun. And that had never happened before this period of trying to become sober. And that was pretty cool to be in a drinking environment and be just fine.
Now, I know like a big part of you probably accepting it and saying like, I have a disease, I'm an alcoholic. There's so much power to saying that and accepting it, that you're aware that like, you don't get to be somebody who, once a month there's a big celebration going on and you get to get drunk once a month and then you control it and that's it and you don't drink any other days of the month. You accept that that's not you. Do you like look at people who can do that in like a, not, I don't want to say envy or jealousy.
Oh, I'm jealous. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm jealous of the person that can like have two nightcaps and not have one on, that was on Tuesday and not have one on Wednesday. I am jealous of the person that can go out to the bar at a social gathering and stay an hour. Because I'm the last motherfucker there. Like, I don't stop. There's extreme FOMO when I'm drinking. There's no FOMO when I'm not drinking. I'm not missing out. I'm not missing out on the hangover. I'm not missing out on waking up in Milwaukee County, which has happened a couple times. I'm not missing out. I am able to go there and have fun, and the appropriate amount of time.
Do you feel like that? Like, did you ever have any other vices?
I mean, I've tried everything within reason. I've never done heroin or anything, meth. But I mean, coke, pot. I've never had severe addiction qualities towards any of that.
Like all that stuff's been like one-off as opposed to a daily need.
If I was offered an edible, which I do like edibles. If I was offered edible right now, I wouldn't take it because I don't feel like I'm strong enough yet. THC is not the gateway drug. Alcohol is. I really believe that.
Yeah.
THC to me, if I took an edible that was like, not at 20 milligrams, let's get high and watch Neil Tyson Degrassi for 4 hours. Like, I don't want to be that high. Like, if I took one as a relaxation thing, I'd be absolutely fine. Wouldn't have to have one tomorrow. Wouldn't have to have another one. But I don't feel like I'm that far into my sobriety to where I'm strong enough to where, okay, you're using a vice here still. I don't know that I ever will be, but I'm comfortable with not using it right now.
Because at this point, you don't want to risk taking something that's going to alter your state of mind, that's just going to possibly bring you back to one and alter it.
I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten high and been like, oh, we need to get drunk. But I've gotten drunk and been like, we need to get high.
Okay, yeah, that's very fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, have you been to AA, or has this been all through just like you working with yourself?
I have. There is a policy within AA that remains anonymous. So I have gone and I do go.
Okay.
I just want to leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure if that was
I should have covered that with you beforehand. It's fine to state it.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one big thing that you said before that I think like really like I can I can see how powerful it is. It's this idea that like, I'm gonna be sober today. I don't know what tomorrow's gonna look like,
Mm-hmm.
but then tomorrow gets here and you get up and you say, I'm gonna be sober today again. Did you like till you had that? Like, what made you realize, like, come to that realization that like that's the way that you have to approach this?
I'd read it a million times. I don't know why. I mean, there's things I read now that I've read before, and like it takes a different foothold. It could be something I've read, the Lord's Prayer. I mean, there'd be something in there that you're like, "Pooh, it's been here smacking me in the face the whole time," but it applies differently because of what you've gone through to get there. Just, I've got an app. It's a sober app, and it's kind of like social media. You can post, you can follow people, you can comment on anybody's. All posts are public. You just can't message, and that's by design. They tell you when you're in treatment not to get into a relationship within a year, which, whatever. I mean, people do what they want, but there's people that are vulnerable. I had a Marine buddy who's a single guy, and he's like, "So there's chicks with daddy issues on this thing?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What's the app?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're not even and I'm like, "You are not above that, are you?" He's like, "No." But there's men with abandonment issues. So I mean, they don't allow you to message, but I'm just staying within that community and encouraging people and seeing people that are like, "Hey, I'm struggling today," and everybody's like, "Hey, man, get through today. Get through today." And then you see them post the next day, and they're like, "Made it through the night," and like, "Oh, today's awesome." Just make it through the night. You can not drink for a night. You can not drink for a night the rest of your life. I mean, I hope I can do that. I don't know if I will or I won't, but I'm not going to drink today.
With the mindfulness stuff, then did you practice meditation? Like, did you pick up any
Oh,
meditation?
I was actually gonna cover that when I brought up mindfulness. I've never been able to meditate. I took yoga in college. I think it was yoga or African dance you had to take to stay eligible for rugby. It was one of the elective requirements. So me and remember John Hubbard?
That sounds super familiar.
John's a big boy.
Yeah.
And I think Alex McCrae. We were in the back row. We were there to stare at yoga butts, like, and she'd be like, "Cobra position," and we're like, from dodgeball. Like, we got thrown out every. But the last part of the class is a meditation. You lay down, and all of us, probably hungover, are sleeping and snoring, but I've never been able to meditate because I'd never been able to really get into a relaxed state where I'm. Successful meditation is being out of your own mind, which substance used to do that for me or many. I'll put on. I sit in my bed and I put on a YouTube loop of rain and soft thunder, and I pick a random word, enlightenment, 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 enlightenment. I repeat that until I'm not even thinking anymore, and then it's almost psychedelic if it's done correctly, that you can outer body a little bit. And, I only do it for about 10 minutes. I try to do that nightly. I mean, the house gets a little chaotic. When I do 75 hard again, I'm going to add some tasks that I think phase 1 is another program by Andy Frisella that has 5 critical tasks. So I might incorporate that as
a meditation practice, 10 minutes a day of meditation.
I'll probably do even longer, just to. But as long as the kids are already in bed, otherwise it's chaos in that house.
I've delved into meditation quite a bit in the past, and I 100% struggle with trying to keep it consistent. Mm-hmm. But I know that when I was very consistent about it, it's crazy how much you can separate from your thoughts, mm-hmm. and realize here exists this enigma in my head of who I am, and then there's these thoughts I have, but I can be so happy and in such a content place when I'm just existing as who I am, and I separate from the thoughts. And it's cool to be able to do that. It's hard. I feel it's hard. I've had a hard time getting back to that place without consistent meditation, because one session alone I can't get back to it. I feel I had to do it time after time. And also like 10-minute sessions are good, but you do kind of need like 20-minute, 30-minute sessions like day after day to like learn how to get into that state further. But for me, when I first learned it, I found it amazing because I have like my own vices that I've gone, like I've had problems with, and I try to quit and I go back to them. I try to quit and I go back to them. But it's that like separation and mindfulness, like when you can like pull back and like you're like, wow, I like really want to do this thing. I said I wouldn't do it. There's a reason I said I wouldn't do it. But like the urge is so strong that you're like, I'm just gonna do it anyways, fuck it. But like how you can like separate from that, like it feels like a superpower.
Oh, it is.
It's a skill, just like picking up a weight and curling it. And you might pick up 20 pounds at first and only be able to curl 20 pounds, but if you keep doing it, eventually you're gonna be curling 80 pounds, you know?
I mean, look how far Western society has come from tribal healing and shamanistic ways of doing things where people, I mean, Joe Rogan goes into depth on that. I'm fascinated by his episodes on DMT and separating your mind. And like again, I'm not ready to go into whatever the chamber is he's got and do DMT right now. I'm just not in that phase of my life. But that stuff fascinating. I'm actually reading a book right now called Food of the Gods, I think it is, and it goes through like mushrooms and stuff that people were using for meditational and spiritual purposes. And I mean, from an academic standpoint, though, I mean, it's not like, let's get high and go to a fish show, like it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
And that's what Western society has put on that. It's funny to be an addict and reading about like the science of it, but I feel like I'm mature enough now to do that. Whereas before, like if you had that book at a rehab, there'd be a guy in the corner who'd be like, yeah, these guys were sweet back in the Peruvian jungle of 800 BC.
So have you ever done any psychedelics or okay? Yeah. And like, was that like a while back?
I wasn't ready that was a long time ago. I wasn't ready for it. I mean, I wasn't there intellectually.
And you probably did it. Like, did you do it more in a party setting?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the party. It wasn't. I mean, if I were to experiment with that now, which I don't think I'm ready. I don't know if I ever will be. It would definitely be more of a spiritual disconnectedness, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure like because you're probably very aware then of how, nowadays, like there has been use with mushrooms and psilocybin yes. To treat PTSD, yes. But as well as addiction problems that like some people have been able to use it. And like after like a really good trip where it's not a party trip. This isn't, it's not to have fun. It's to get really introspective. It's to get into your own brain and like,
what's the one that Aaron Rodgers did? Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca. Yeah.
There's Ron White from the comedy tour.
Yep. Blue collar.
He's got a drink in his hand and quit drinking after 50 years from ayahuasca. So I mean, there's something to be said about ancient medicines that weren't developed by a pharmaceutical company trying to stick their hand in a money jar.
I know, or the fact that these are medicines. They're not. You can use the word drugs, or you could, they are medicines, and if used properly, they can have a medicine-like effect on the mind and the body in different ways. Like, I mean,
there's a lot of growth to get to the point as an addict, as an alcoholic, that where I can look at like, hey, lick this toad, you'll get fucked up. But look at it from technically, it's clinical. I mean, if you get a doctor that does the research on it, they can do it from a clinical standpoint. Society and governments have pushed that so far from the original uses medicinally.
Like a big one that they've been doing a lot of research on is MDMA. And like again, there've been a lot of research has been done for PTSD. But like, I've had opportunities to do MDMA in the past, and I haven't because they say the first time you do is the best. And I don't want to do it just to party. I want like the first time I do it, I want to do it in a clinic with a therapist. And I want to do an 8-hour therapy session because I'm like
controlled.
It's like you could take MDMA and have a great ravey time, right? But like I'd rather take it and like reap, especially the first time, reap those like really altering benefits of like that self-acceptance, that like that can come with it, and like the ability to like heal whether kind of like emotional past traumas you have in you from whether it's childhood or adulthood or whatever it is. But you hear MDMA and it's so it's so tied to this idea of like it's parties. It's literally a rave scene. That's what they do. But like it's a medicine and it can be used as a medicine. And I think it's very cool nowadays that they are like doing research and trying to like push it towards that. And I'm excited for the potential impact it can have for PTSD because I hate the thought that 22 veterans take their life every day when they can. It's very likely that if they had the right resources reach out to them, that would not happen.
There's states that are starting to do it from from an approved clinical standpoint. I think Washington State, they're pretty progressive out there. So I mean,
Colorado too.
Colorado wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yep.
That are looking into psilocybin. I don't know that the VA itself is doing it, but I've heard that they're at least looking into it. The conversation has started. Just look at the legalization of THC across the country. I mean, growing up in the 80s and 90s, I would have been like, yeah, right. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Wisconsin is, where it's legal.
All right, let's talk about this. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. I think it's great that weed and THC is legalized and is becoming legal, but I don't know if I think that like it's the greatest thing in a society where everybody's so lonely and depressed, and they can take this thing that it's less physically addictive than to drink every night. It's going to have less physical negative.
There's no
like physical
what's
dependency?
the chemical dump? Dopamine. There's no dopamine dump with
THC. Well, there is. There's still. It's just not as bad because it goes through the cannabinoid system.
Yes.
Which like is is a system we naturally have, as opposed to where alcohol increases your GABA as well as dopamine dump and all that stuff. But I worry that like I used to be a very big favor of the fact that we'll legalize this. People can make their own decisions, but like
people are going to get it either way.
Yes.
But I mean, I guess from a standpoint of, I don't know. I mean, the older I get, the more and more I just want a libertarian, free of government society.
I mean, libertarian is my political point of view at this point in life. I believe people should do whatever the hell they want as long as it's not hurting anybody.
You might be giving access to someone who wouldn't otherwise have it, and but I mean,
well, it's not even okay. I think it should be legal. I think the access should be there. I think education on it needs to be better. The same way that like, in Wisconsin, education on alcohol isn't that great. Like, that's like, we do have a lot of people that drink alcohol.
Look who we have in office across political parties and spectrums. It's all people in their 80s. They don't. I mean, the world the world view towards things has changed so much. I mean, it's you're never going to get. If Strom Thurmond was still alive, to sit down and be like, "Yep, we're going to put THC on the ballot." But talk about it from a scientific standpoint. That's never going to happen with that era of people. The baby boomers are starting to get in, and you might have a little bit more push. But I mean, from a scientific, medical standpoint, I don't think that's going to be priority. I mean, look what happened to Colorado. When Colorado was probably the first state to legalize it recreational.
Yeah, yep.
That state has fallen apart. I mean, when it is number one, Colorado and Florida are either 1 and 2, vice versa, for rehab facilities in the entire country. If you're moving to a state just because pot's legal, you probably have other issues. Like if that's your number one priority in life, like, hey, pack everything up. We're moving to Boulder because pot's legal. I mean, you can been getting weed in Wisconsin and in Sturgeon Bay. It's not hard to find.
Well, it's even like the way that somebody might want to tie their entire personality to a substance. Yeah. It's just as negative to tie your personality to weed as it is to tie your personality to drinking. Like it's not. You should not revolve your entire life around the substance that you like look for to make you feel a certain way. But like I worry that there's this like pandemic of young men that like this is a big thing that you hit on earlier, which is the reason that the hunts are so important isn't necessarily the hunting itself. The hunting's great, but it's the camaraderie. It's the brotherhood, being with other men and talking and like realizing, now I'm like building up a friendship with somebody else that like maybe I can reach out to them at a later point. Like, I think we have so many men who are lonely, or, you know, especially like young 20s men who are lonely, living by themselves. They watch a lot of porn, so they don't go seek women because they get enough gratification from porn, and then they don't seek socialization because they can smoke weed and, you know, use, whether it's drink or smoke weed. But I think my personal opinion is that weed is becoming so highly accepted and popular that like, just get high and watch some Netflix, and now you don't have, like, now you're not like feeling sad about not going out to socialize with friends, and like I feel like that's just getting worse. And like that's where like my little fear with it being fully legal is that people are not finding ways to be social. They're not finding ways to be part of a community anymore. And I think we men, without a doubt, intrinsically need community. That's why men like being on sports teams. That's tribes.
Tribe.
I think that's why the military, I mean, a lot of guys get out of the military and I think have a very hard time with going from being surrounded by a bunch of like-minded people that they're with all the time to all of a sudden you're at home by yourself, and now you're dealing with the brain effects of what your brain had to go through while you're deployed, or what you went through with those guys. And you don't have them there as a support system anymore. You don't even have them there to just shoot the shit with you every morning when you guys all get up and you do the same shit together, you know? That like, that's like, I have a big concern of like young single males and what's happening.
I would definitely follow you there and see that. I mean, that is potentially concerning. I mean, just looking at my teenage daughter and how her and her girlfriends interact, and now the boys and girls, there is complete lack of personal interaction. Everything's Snapchat. Everything. I told her, because I can be a little intimidating without even opening my mouth.
No.
She said she was in the park behind her house one day with a bunch of girls, and the boys were out there, and I walked out with my son, and they scattered. And she's like, "I'm never going to get a boyfriend." And I looked at her and I said, "The first one that walks up and shakes my hand, she's yours, pal." I mean, jokingly, but that was a statement on these kids, the boys especially. They don't socially interact verbally. Everything is online. Everything is dissociated. Talking to a guy at the gym the other day, he had just got out of a long-term relationship, and he was talking about Tinder, and he's just like, there's no game, there's no building a relationship, there's no courting. And that has started at our level and is going down, and it's going to be even worse for these kids. So yeah, like let's smoke pot and swipe right a few times and see what happens, you know.
And if nothing happens, I'll play some video games and get high and
watch Pornhub, you know.
Exactly. So okay. Speaking about like your daughters, I'd love for you to like tell me more about when you first met Jessica, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. When you first met Jessica, and like how that was for you to change your life, like, and getting married.
I met her while I was in rehab.
Okay.
Going back, they say, don't get a relationship for the first year. I mean, my ex was not on paper. It wasn't adjudicated by the court yet. It had been done for a long time. I was not looking whatsoever. Tinder was not a thing when I first got married to my first wife. So I was having fun. I would just put that in generalities. And I was having a lot of fun, but I was having too much fun drinking. I had no spouse or I mean, not even from a romantic standpoint. I had no person in my life, in my household, keeping me accountable. I mean, so it was just party to the point where like I spiraled, and like family members were like, "Dude." So I go to rehab, and I'm not looking for a long-term relationship. I was living in Milwaukee. I changed my dating profile to Green Bay because I had run through everything in Milwaukee. And I'm in Florida, and we start messaging. She said, so where do you live in Green Bay? And I was like, well, I don't. And she said, well, your dating profile says Green Bay. I'm like, I'm from Milwaukee, or I live in Milwaukee. And she goes, okay, cool. I said, but I'm in Florida. And she's like, what are you doing in Florida? I'm like, taking classes, which is a little bit of
A little betting on the truth.
I leveled up with her that night. So we texted back and forth. It was weird. It was a rehab that you could have your phone within reason. You couldn't just be sitting there in class. And being that my job is social media related, I needed my phone. So I was texting back and forth with her. One of the first things she said to me, she said, do you want kids? And I said, yes, absolutely. And she goes, well, I'm not the person for you. I already have 2. I don't want any more. And that was the first and only time I ever lied to her. I said, that's not a deal breaker. I really wanted my own children. I had no idea what I was walking into step-parent wise. So talked that night. I knew that night that I was going to marry this woman. I knew. And even the guy that was in charge of her little, for lack of a better term, little halfway house that we were staying in, I walked back in from the porch. He's like, holy shit, you're in love. And I was like, I know, fuck. Like, I was not ready. But in the conversations we had, she had been through a parent with severe alcoholism. She had definitely had her own issues. And she said to me, the fact that I would be looking for someone while I'm in a rehab and be willing to admit that shows that I want to better myself. Checked out a rehab, flew to Milwaukee. She picked me up, stayed there for the weekend, and then she went back to Green Bay. And I think I let her be alone for one day, and I drove up there and sold my house and sold her house and bought a house, and the rest is history, so to say. But I mean, walking into having, I'd have to look how old the girls were when I got there. I mean, they were young. I mean, they're still young. They're 14 and 11.
Because how long have you guys been married now?
I don't even know. Like, I don't even keep track. We don't do anniversaries or anything. We save money from presents, and we take the kids on trips. I mean, I would say 2016 or 2017. Yeah, that would make about sense.
Okay.
I don't think we officially got married till like 2018 or 19. But we honestly consider the date of our relationship starting the day that we talked on the phone, because I knew right away, and so did she.
Yes, clicked that.
It was unbelievable. It was unreal. I'm like, oh my God, and don't get me wrong, it's still a marriage. I mean, there's ups and downs and fights and love and tears, and but I knew I had found my person. I knew right away. I thought that was bullshit when people would say that. I'm like, yeah, right. I mean, love at first sight. It wasn't first sight, but it was. I fell in love with her for her experiences, who she was, and how she treated me, and how we engaged before we ever even physically touched, or even in the same room, and that was pretty freaking cool. And after being a drunk womanizer, and actually finding love, and love is what do they say? Love is a choice. Bullshit. Love is a feeling and a choice. I think it's both.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to feel the emotions of it, but you also have to choose love when it gets hard. And I knew I had that in her. I knew I had somebody that would never quit on me, which, I mean, look at all that happened in between us meeting and me getting sober. I mean, I said to her the other day, I was like, why did you stay? And she's like, I knew there was a person inside there that you just had to find it. I mean, that even wants to choke me up. Like, I mean, we're meant to be together. She's just as fucking nuts as I am, so.
Now, when you guys first got together, were you kind of like, was this the start of you like really wanting to quit drinking, and you wanted to kind of face this problem a little bit more head on?
I was thinking about this the other day. So I don't even think it was a week after rehab I started drinking, and she drank with me. And I don't want to say she enabled me, because I think my need to, or my want to drink, also played on her want to drink, and that's why maybe they say don't get together with two addicts that are in recovery. But my greed and my selfishness towards drinking probably influenced her a lot throughout the years. And, again, she stayed until I one day the light bulb went on. So, I don't think a lot of people know that. I probably had a lot of people fooled coming out of that rehab. Oh, look, he's in love. She's letting him around her kids. Who is this person? And then seeing me interact with the girls, and the girls are mine. I don't care what anybody says. Those are my daughters.
How was that transition for you from going from not having kids to now you have 2 daughters?
Going from Marine drunk punch a hole in the wall to holy shit. It's definitely a learning curve, and I'd say it's still a learning curve. I mean, you learn as a parent, whether it's your biological kid or your stepchildren. It's a daily learning experience. But it was definitely, I'd say, a good year of like finding where my role was, especially because I'm not the biological parent. Where my role is, where my role is as secondary to Jessica. And finding that balance. And when we found that, if the kids need a tune-up, she just comes grabs daddy.
Was the first year probably the biggest struggle? Like, was the year the biggest struggle with that, as like that adjustment, and like the following years? Obviously, struggles are still there.
It's harder as they get older.
Okay. Because they're both under 10 when you guys first.
So yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
And now they're both like in teenage years, like young teenage. Okay.
Or you spank a 14-year-old? No, you don't. You're not. There's no point. And parenting styles between mom and dad are going to be different still. I'm much more like there's no bullshit, and she's much more like nature and nurturer, which is fine. You need a balance.
Yeah.
I laugh when my son, I'm about to discipline him, and he's like, she's not even in the room. He's like, Mom. And I'm like, oh, hell no. He knows where to go. Yeah.
Mom's not going to let dad hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something like I very, very much believe, which is, and this, I think this is especially true for men because men emotionally mature slower than women.
Yeah.
And that most men in their 20s are not actually mature. The most mature looking men in their 20s are still not mature. But the level of maturity I had to go through and gain from accepting that I'm now living with my wife. This is somebody else that every single day I cannot just care about what I want and what I need, but I have to care about them. I have to like always prioritize their needs and wants along with mine. Till I had to like go through that and had to truly accept that I was not the only person in my life that my decisions affected anymore. Like that made me grow so much.
Oh, for sure.
So for you had been married prior, but it was a toxic relationship. You'd obviously had you lived with somebody prior to living with Jessica?
Not prior to my first wife. Besides male friend roommates,
which is it's two immature guys living together is not you're not gonna get that. But to me, it was like living with somebody every single day. You really like that, the way that changed me, and like the fact that I cared about this person enough that like I really wanted to change the little things about myself so that I was easier to live with, but also because it was beneficial to me. Did you feel like you went through that?
In my first marriage, my alcoholism was so dominant, so prevalent. Which is essentially selfishness. I didn't give a shit. I treated her very poorly. Moving in with Jess, anybody that knows her, she's a firecracker. She's a pistol, and there was a line of what was expected of me. I still get away with a lot. I'm not gonna lie, but there was definitely like, hey, this is what I'm going to tolerate. But I needed that, or I was just going to continue to crash course. This is what I'll tolerate, and we made it through it, and now there's still a level even in sobriety that she expects that, and she's a woman, so she's constantly pushing for more.
There's always more that can be done.
Yes, yeah. She's not wrong.
Yeah. And if we didn't have somebody pushing us sometimes it's hard to always just be pushing yourself. You can only push yourself for so long before you need that external motivation from somebody that you care about that wants to push you.
Yeah.
So now another belief I have, and I don't have kids yet, is that the next level of maturity I'm going to reach is going to come from having kids. Because my feelings have to get put to the side, or not even, my feelings now matter just as much as my partner's feelings, who I live with and I see them every day, I deal with them every day. So like our feelings have to both matter and be valid. But then when a kid comes into play, now both of your feelings get thrown out the fucking trash. And like now this kid, they're the number one priority. Like they have to come first in a lot of senses. I believe that in the like I do believe you should still prioritize your partner, and like your partner, like your kid shouldn't be prioritized over your partner. But when kids come, all of a sudden, like the level of responsibility you have and the way that you really have to like put yourself on the back burner, to me, it seems like that's almost like necessary for us to like get to like the next level of maturity, whether it's for men and women or just for men. Like, did you feel like on top of the fact that you moved in with Jessica and you had somebody who wanted to push you to be better, but now you're also responsible for these kids, and then eventually came your own kid, that like, do you feel like there were steps of like maturity through that time, or no?
I don't think I would have been ready for my child without having the girls as like and you're getting them at that age, like they've already got some life experiences and norms that they expect. So it was like, it was culture shock for lack of a better term. It was like, oh shit, like let's me do. Am I ready for this? No one's ready. That's the honest truth. No one's ready. And even after having them and then getting having my son be born, I remember she had a C-section. It was a high risk pregnancy, and so they're still, trimming her up and so on, stitching her up, and they hand you this baby, and you're like, fuck, like that was my first thought. My first thought when I looked at it, he has my mom's eyes. I was like, holy shit. And then I was like, holy shit, like what now? No one's ready. No one's ready. And it's a constant learning curve and adapting and improvising. And my wife and I got in a fight at 3 a.m. this morning because we had a sick kid crawled into bed and we had differences of opinion, and we got a little testy. And then on the way here, I texted her. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry for yelling. She's like, hey, we were both tired. It's 3 a.m. Like we're frustrated. We're over it. That's so learning each other. You're constantly learning each other.
And you learn how to work with, do you feel like that mindfulness ever comes into like the relationship aspects then? Like where like, you have to step back and be like, okay, she's mad because I did this. Okay, I can understand why she's mad. I know I can be mindful and come and like step back a little bit and realize like it's not just my reasoning for why I'm mad here. Yeah. She has her very own logical good reasons or whatever it is, Like how has that
mindfulness not in a traditional sense of being extremely present? You have to step back to find the presence, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You have to pull back, breathe, put your feet down. Okay, why is she reacting this way? What did I do? Like what did I do wrong? And not from a I don't do anything wrong sense, but like from a what is she feeling ill towards and why? And so that from a mindfulness standpoint, yeah, if you do step back. I am a person that needs immediate conflict resolution, and I have learned in a marriage and with children that is not an option. There's multiple times where you just have to pull back. This morning, I think it was like 8:30, 9 o'clock when I texted her, but I wasn't sorry yet.
Yeah, you get there.
Yeah,
and as long as you get there eventually.
Yeah.
So, like, do you? And this is obviously it's a real like, do you think type of question, but like without the kids and without marriage, do you think it's possible you'd have gotten to this place where you're able to realize the benefits of sobriety and how much it can pay into your life? Okay.
Probably not. That's a reason. Like, will I drink the day all the kids are graduated out of high school? Maybe. Will I drink when she's retired and I'm retired and we buy an RV? Maybe. But like, I want to at least make it there, losing my parents even in my 30s was so painful that like I can't imagine. I mean, I've got friends who lost their parents when they were grade school and high school, or lost a parent, and just the amount of traumas that come from that. I want to be around to set these kids up for success, whatever happens when I'm gone. And drinking ain't gonna do that. I'm not present, and I'm not going to be even physically present, before I'm 50, if I keep on the pace I'm at. So, I mean, yes, the kids and wife are a major reason. I just had to find my own internal motivation to start that process.
Okay. And now you can feel free to like go as depth or like not depth as you want on this subject, but with your parents passing, like I think a lot of people haven't experienced that and don't like, especially like in your 30s, like what would you have to say to people about that, like that time for you and how hard that was? Obviously you were spiraling through that time and like you were using alcohol to cope a lot, but can you talk about some of the emotions you felt?
Let me first say though, if my parents wouldn't have died, I'd probably still be married to the same person. I'd probably be drunk and hate my job that I was working, and I'd probably be going through the motions and just be that guy that goes 9 to 5 and comes home and sits in the driveway for 40 minutes and stares at a steering wheel. Like that was the motivation. My dad died, the year before retirement, and I was like, wow, you're going to work till you retire and then die? And that had a lot of motivation for me to jump into a world that I had never even thought of, that's taken me, to Africa, to China, to all over the U.S. on a regular basis, and it gave me the guts to take that chance. So that being said, without that, those incidences in perfect storm, I'm still probably locked in. And then, I call my parents every day, which I'd love to trade any amount of money, any amount of success to have phone calls with my parents. But I mean, I don't think, I think the events itself set me on a path of a perfect storm. But as far as emotions and feelings, so my mom died. She was on her third or fourth round of cancer. She had ovarian cancer. So, I mean, the first time, she had adult children, UFA hysterectomy or whatever they call it when they rip out, I mean, they basically gut her female reproductive system. I mean, she was in remission. She looked great. But then she got it again and got it again. I was in Baltimore for a work thing when my dad called me. Actually, I was at Ground Zero, of all places. I was in New York for the weekend, experiencing Ground Zero, feeling the emotion of that. And my dad calls, and I was like, I don't really want to talk right now. I'm at Ground Zero. He's like, your mom's on hospice. He just bursted out. And I was like, oh, fuck. So I didn't even know that she had gotten cancer again. They didn't want to tell me because I was at a school for work. So going home and seeing her, when I left, she looked normal. She looked beautiful. And seeing her as an absolute skeleton, that's kind of where, like, how many times can you cry? How many times can you curse God or your existence? Or how many times can you, oh, now dad's dying, and losing them? It becomes to the point where it's so numb that, like, I got tired of people coming up to me, town of 9,000 people. There's people to this day, and they mean well. I'll go home and, it's 2024. This was 2011. I mean, at the grocery store, my family's camping in Door County, and people are like, oh, I'm so sorry about your parents. I'm like, oh, fuck, me too. But, like, you become so numb to it that there is no more feeling. And I was drinking to feel. I drank alcohol to cry. I drank alcohol to access emotions. Talking about In the Air Tonight, Phil Collins. I mean, I didn't feel anymore. I felt the only thing I was able to access was anger, and I was angry and irritable because of PTSD, and I was angry and irritable because I was waiting for the next drink. So I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sadness anymore. It had become so numb. I mean, that's a lot to put on your plate I call it my Lieutenant Dan moment. He was up in the crow's nest. You know, you call this a storm. Losing both my parents, and the day my dad got diagnosed terminal, I had 2 dogs hit by a truck and killed. Like, this is all one fucking day. You know, I haven't even seen my mom yet. I dropped dogs off at a family friend's farm. So this all happens in one day. Going to see your mom on hospice for the first time. Dad's diagnosed as terminal, lost 2 dogs. I mean, that's my Lieutenant Dan moment. I was walking through a woods drunk that night, just screaming at the sky, like, this is all you fucking got? You know, like, I'm questioning God, my existence. And you asked about the feeling. It becomes to a point where there is no feeling anymore. And that's what I was drinking to access. And now, you know, 4.5 months into sobriety, I'm able to feel. And I'm not embarrassed to cry. I'm not embarrassed to. I'm having fun.
Do you? I mean, I can't imagine that going through that. And what do you feel like even kept you going?
I don't know. I mean, and we talked about suicide. I mean, I was never suicidal. I was just gonna drink and be reckless until the good Lord said, all right, that's enough. Until I did something reckless enough. I mean, even when finding hunting, I mean, I was doing some dangerous ass hunts, like going to the Bering Sea in a duck boat and watching the guys from Deadliest Catch are coming into shore as we're going out in these little Zodiacs, and they're like, look at these idiots. We're like, you guys die all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Hunting, you know, Cape buffalo in Africa. They kill 200 people a year. You know, I enjoyed the time we hunted a Cape buffalo. One of the younger PHs, they're called professional hunters. They're Afrikaans, which are Dutch and German heritage, white South Africans. They go to a school for PH, for professional hunting, and I mean, it's a very lucrative job. So these guys, you know, hunt this stuff all the time, and we're hunting Cape buffalo, which are dangerous. And the client wounds one, hits it in the brisket. So now you've got no major arteries, no organs, and no joints. So now you've got a pissed off 2,000-pound animal, you know, and probably even more than that. And as we're going into the thick shit to go try to get another shot on this animal because it's wounded, like the younger PH looks at me, he's like, You're really enjoying this. And I was like, I'm having fun, man. He's like, you realize this is fucking dangerous, right? And I said, no, that's what I like. I enjoy the danger because it made me feel alive. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, because it kind of like, so when you weren't drinking, you would feel anger and you'd feel irritability and anger. And when you drank, that actually let you feel other emotions.
Yes.
Even if it was sadness, it was still better than you just feeling angry because that's
empty.
Or empty, because that's a hard place to be. That, like, for this, it made you feel alive because you felt something. You felt something, some adrenaline rush. And you almost have to be present then. You're like forced to be in the moment.
Yes.
Right?
I better be sharp. I mean, hog dogging. Have you ever seen that?
No.
You chase the wild boars with hounds. The hounds bay them up. Then you have a pit bull that's on a chain with Kevlar because the pit bull is going to engage. So as soon as you hear the hounds bay up the hog, I mean, there's like 200, 250-pound boar hogs, the big old cutters. Drop the pit bull. He goes in. He grabs the hog by the face. So then the hog can't swing anymore. But then someone has to run in and tackle the hog while the pit bull's attached, while these hounds are going nuts. And it's usually in Florida, or Texas. So it's like brushy, sawgrass, palmettos. Someone has to flip that hog over, and somebody runs behind it and stabs it in the heart, and it dies in like 6 seconds. And it's like this adrenaline-filled, like, we almost got fucked up by this hog.
So you've done this?
Oh, I've done it like 7, 8 times.
Oh, Jesus, this sounds awesome / intense as shit.
The first time I ever did it, I mean, I've got blood all the way up to my elbow. I mean, when I film this, I don't put anything up to the point of penetration. I cut it there. Like, we don't need to show the gore. It is gory.
Yeah.
But it's primal, and it's efficient. It dispatches that animal. It puts that animal down if you get the heart, it's 6 seconds. But I mean, that heart explodes, and the dogs are going nuts. Pitbull's got blood all over his face. Everybody's like, ah, I'm like, and you're like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. Maybe let's do it again.
Yeah.
And I've done it 7 or 8 times now, where we've done 5 to 6 hogs each time. And the first one is as exciting as the last one. I'm like, I'm gonna get fucked up by one of these pigs.
Man, okay.
So I mean, I've always been drawn to that. I mean, I didn't ever think about it until you articulated it that way. That like I was able to feel, I was able to be present. You know, I never thought about it like that. Like that, definitely, I like that analysis.
Yeah, I didn't I wasn't as aware of this back then, but like in my senior year of high school is when my anxiety started getting really bad, and I realized how bad it was, and I didn't know how to control it. But one of the things I used to do when it get real bad at night sometimes is I'd go get in my car and I would recklessly drive 120 miles an hour for a minute. And that minute of being 120 miles an hour meant I was doing nothing but focusing on the present. It took me completely out of my mind. And I would do it at night randomly just to get my anxiety to go away. And in retrospect, now looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it's because it literally took me out of the thinking mode into I am present and I am only aware of what's happening.
Danger, survival, reactionary.
Yes.
Flight or flight.
You can't afford to be thinking about something else when you're doing something that could potentially really hurt you or end your life in the moment. Yeah.
I mean, what's more primordial existence to humanity than that struggle for survival?
Yeah.
That's why war is attractive. And I forgot to give you this definition. I read it. There's a SF community guy that writes under a pen name called Grifter. And he wrote, When the Music Stops is the name of the article. And it's a phenomenal article. I'll send it to you. But he talks about PTSD differently than clinically. And he said, PTSD is the realization you'll never be this fucking badass again. There's truth to that. Going to a cubicle job like I did, I got in the elevator and people would be like, happy Monday. I'd be like, fuck you, Karen. Like, I'd or hey, thank God it's Friday on the elevator on the way down. I'm like, Tina, you're going home to, eat Haagen-Dazs with your cats and watch Lifetime movies. Your life sucks. And Monday through Friday, I'm sitting in this fucking cubicle going like, wow, wouldn't it be awesome to go blow the doors off that fucking house and do a raid? Oh, nope, TPS reports, so that seeking that because combat is easy. Don't die. That's it.
Survive.
Don't die. And try not to let these two die. That's it. Fuck the country. Fuck the country we're in. You go there as a flag waving, pledge allegiance to the flag, blah, 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 Ronald Reagan. It's funny in my 40s now. I'm like, well, I look at Ukraine, I look at Russia, I look at Israel and all this shit, and I'm like, why are we even involved? And it's all politics at this point. Right? I mean, but in war, when you get stuck there is the wrong word. When you made the choices to get yourself there, and the guys next to you made their choices, and the light bulb goes on amongst all you, like, well, we're in this to fucking together. Survive. That's easy. So I mean, there's definitely an attraction to the danger, and a nostalgic feeling of wanting to be back in combat where life was easy. What do I got to do today? Shoot the motherfucker that's trying to shoot me, and find food and water when we need it, and sleep when they let us.
It's like life at its rawest, simplest form, right? Like nothing else fucking matters. It doesn't matter how your hair looks. It doesn't matter what you ate for breakfast. Nothing matters. Are you gonna die or you're not gonna die in this moment by continuing to make the right decisions right now, being focused? Mm-hmm. But that, I feel like that really, it goes along with this, how we as a society, we've gotten so much comfort that we have the luxury to spend time thinking about such unimportant shit all the time. But there was a point in time, I mean, even 100 years ago where 1920s, you had to survive. Yeah. You had to figure out how to make money so you could put food on the table, not make money so you could buy a bigger TV.
Imagine being a female in an era where you're alone and you have a choice of prostitution or starving. No one. I shouldn't say no one, right? But the vast majority of people in this country are not to that point, and they've all got smartphones. You're not poor. You are not struggling. You know, there is easy ways, and I like that you bring that up, because I say the same shit to my kids. I'm like, you have never had to struggle. I'm a pussy compared to fucking the frontiersmen. Look at all this. On my elk hunt, we were talking, like, between me and the two other guys there, I was like, let's total up how much gear we have dollar-wise and how much technology we have. And if I don't get one, we just go to Arby's, you know, like or the gas station or the supermarket. These guys, they don't get one with a flint arrow. They don't eat, or their offspring don't eat, and everyone dies. And I'm just like, wow, we've got no skin in the game. I mean, strong times create, you know.
Hard times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men.
And we are in the weak men stage of that rotation right now.
And like, it's crazy how, like, that statement, that saying sounds like, it sounds cliche, and it sounds like it's just, you know, it's an artsy sounding kind of, but it's so goddamn true. It is.
I'd be interesting to see who originated that. I would guess a Roman era philosopher.
I do think it's that old. It's not like a 1900s one. It's like an old saying from the fact that, like, they've seen civilizations come and go, you know.
Well, the Romans collapsed basically to what we're doing internally. We're collapsed with a lapse of culture, because people are allowed to have too much culture.
Because now your identity is literally the biggest thing to focus on. Instead of, do you have food? Do you have shelter? And then, are you taking care of the people around you? Nope. It's, I want you to identify me as this specific thing, otherwise it hurts my feelings.
And if this person gets elected, we're all gonna die, and then screams at like, stop it.
It's like, how are you, like, I mean, I'm in this generation, I'm in this culture, I know I'm very much a part of it, but I do my best to try to always think in hindsight. Now, for me, I did have the benefit of growing up in the Middle East. So I had the benefit of growing up in, I considered where I was from a second world country. It wasn't a first world, definitely wasn't third world. We had plumbing, but like, I went back there this summer and took my wife for the first time to like see
that's cool.
Amman, Jordan. And it's just like, you realize life is different. Like, the way that they live there right now, even with technology and everything that's happening in the world, there's still just a sense of like, people are just surviving over there. Like, people, and like the way people care about their families and whatnot, like, it's so different. You come to America and it's just, we have so much comfort that like we focus on the dumbest shit sometimes. And I feel fortunate that I had the experiences I've had while still getting to end up being in America, because America's the greatest country in the world. I think the freedom we have here cannot be understated even a fucking smidge. And I think whenever people look at America and say anything negative about it, I'm like, you don't fucking know what you're saying.
People that are from here that say it.
Oh, yes. People are from here that say it. I'm like, you're just saying words that you heard somewhere.
That's
like,
fascist. Like really?
Do you what?
Do you know what fascism really is?
You know, there's parts of the world where you could be arrested for what you say, right?
Slavery's still legal in Mauritania, you know. Like,
there's more slaves in Africa right now than there ever was in 1700s, you know, like
Chinese and the Uyghurs. I mean, like shit's going on all over the world, and people. I mean, just watching. I mean, I like to watch some of the to keep a numbness. You know, I don't want to lose that numbness to the savagery of the world. I like to use, it used to be called Live Leak, and there was like they're gore websites, but it's watching real-time videos of combat stuff, or like, you know, some lady on a moped in Vietnam getting hit by a cement truck. It's all like CCTV, but it's reality. And I'll watch some of the stuff going on in Ukraine just to keep an edge. My wife will walk in, and I'll be eating a sandwich, you know, like in the office, and she's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" She's like, "Yeah, that guy just got the Russian sniper got him." You know, like, but it's, I mean, she's blind to it, and I make her watch some of it. I'm not gonna make her watch like cartel executions, because those motherfuckers, and oh boy, yeah, I'm just eating, eating my Cheerios, like oh yeah, that guy got a chainsaw. But I mean, just seeing her, and she's one of the smart. Her intelligence is in sociology, human interaction. She's very good at reading people and reading situations, and she's even blind to what goes on in the world. I mean, just sex trafficking, and you know, just the amount of debauchery and hedonism and evil that's out there. She has no clue.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the internet has made us more aware of it, but has also spread it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things. Like the internet, it comes with so many positives, yet also comes with so many negatives. It keeps us connected, but it also lets things spread like wildfire that sometimes are not good for anybody that is being sucked into that wildfire.
I mean, anything you have out there as a tool can be used for good or evil. I think there's been throughout. I mean, you look into ancient history. There is some brutal shit that went on. We've always been a savage species, but it's accessible now. Like you can see where it's happening all over the world via news and underground sources. It's accessible. I mean, there was always school shootings. Now you just know about it within minutes.
Yeah. Well, there's that like study or book or whatever, like where they did like experiments on monkeys, and they determined that we have a very similar thing with monkeys, where we're only able to basically like conceptualize the idea of like 150 people. Because we came up in like 150 person tribes, like back in the way back in the day. That like people forget, like people think that there's this utopia we could live in where everybody in the world lives peacefully and loves each other and does everything for the sake of everybody else on the planet. Where I'm like, that's literally just not genetically possible for us. No. We're always going to only care about a certain subset of people in our lives that we can like formalize. We can literally think of them and be like, yep, they are a real person. I can think of their emotions. I can think of their feelings. Like, I can't think of that when I'm thinking about somebody living in China. I can think of them as much as I can and like be like, yeah, they're real people. They have real different circumstances they live under than us. But like, when it comes to making a decision that's going to benefit my people or their people, we're tribal as fuck. We're never going to lose being tribal. But the internet has connected us in a way to make people think that we are one big tribe. But no, we're not. The internet just connected us all and just let us connect all our tribes together. But we're still tribes, and we're still gonna.
What book was that? Was that The Way of Men?
I don't know which book it's from.
Because it's mentioned in The Way of Men.
Okay.
I just read that in my second round of 75 Hard. It's the best book I've ever read. It covers all of this.
The Way of Men?
Yes.
We'll definitely.
The follow-up book to that is Becoming Barbarian, and it talks about creating. But it talks about how the world is now, and new tribalism. We're spread out. Like there's no geographically local. I mean, I look at my neighbor. I'd love to punch that guy in the face. He's not my tribe, and he's not going to be my tribe just because of geographical, connectedness. I mean, my tribe is spread out, but I mean, it talks about that within a modern sense, and it's a fascinating book. The Way of Men. Oh my God! It talks about monkeys and talks about bonobos and chimpanzees, and one is matriarchal and one is patriarchal society, and the loss of male dominance within leadership. And I've had women that I know are very intellectual feminists read it and take away from it. It's pretty well written.
I will definitely pick it up. I've been needing a new book to read, so The Way of Men.
The Way of Men.
I will definitely.
Jack Donovan.
Oh, okay, that sounds familiar. Yeah. He sounds familiar.
He's phenomenal. I'm going to be reading part 3. I don't remember what the title of part 3 is, but real soon here after I finish The Food of the Gods.
The Food of do you know who?
I don't know. I just started it.
It sounds familiar, and I can't. But
it was talked about on Joe Rogan's podcast.
And that's where I remember it. Okay.
He had this little weasel guy on who was actually super funny and kind of abstract and obtuse at the same time. The guy he was an interesting guest. I can't remember his name though either. But Food of the Gods is the use of plant medicines tribally and shamanistically.
Oh man, okay. The name, I feel like the name kind of popped in my head there a little bit, but I'm not going to spend too much time trying to remember it. So, okay. Do you think that there's like a solution for men with the fact that men have felt less needed? They they have less like roles and responsibilities nowadays. Like back in the day, you hunted to feed your family or whatever. Like you farmed, you hunted, you had some physical work you have to do. I mean, that's why I think like we really desire physical work in some sense, and that's we work out now to kind of get that. Like it's modern day, we use training, we use working out to get it. But do you see a solution? Do you see like a way that men can get through this time in a world now where everything's online and everything's so segregated, and men, the idea that a man is a guy who's stands up and does this and does that, and it's being kicked down a notch, and it keeps getting kicked down. Like, do you see a way out of that?
When I said before that the hunt is not the main thing, that's the reason why the veterans gather. But for me, I hunted. I was not a hunter until now. I do it for a living. I had so little exposure to it. When my dad came with me, my dad didn't hunt at all. When I shot my first doe, I was like 14, and it's dead. It's on the ground, and we both look at each other like, "Well, what do we do next?" He's like, "Do you have a knife?" And I was like, "No." Like, so we had to borrow a knife to gut an animal. I had no idea. And butchering. So I take away a lot. I do a lot of nose to tail eating, as much as possible. I mean, you're not going to eat the butthole,
Yeah.
Learning how to butcher and hearts and livers and I mean, there's on a bird, most people don't even take the thighs and the legs because it's kind of a pain in the ass to do. There's not a lot of meat reward, but going out there and hunting, or and even if you don't have access to that, raise some chickens and butcher your chickens and process it and do it all yourself. It's amazing. Like I go out and scout. I find the birds. I shoot the birds. I pluck the birds. I butcher the birds. I trim the birds. I cook the birds, and then they're on the table. Like I've done that whole process. There's a lot of, and it's not even kill. Like the kill is so minimal in that. It's the pursuit and the providing.
The providing.
Yes,
because you feel like it gives you such a high self-worth, right?
Yeah.
Like it really increases your own way you view your self-worth.
How much can I put in a freezer that can, or even process and dehydrate or process and can that can feed my family throughout a year of hard work. I mean, hunting is hard work. I mean,
yeah,
I hate dragging a deer. Like it sucks.
I mean, like, have you ever done elk hunting?
Yeah.
Like I feel like I've heard of that one. Like you gotta drag an elk out if you shoot an elk.
I have not. This last elk hunt was a trophy zone. I waited 13 years for a tag. I went in. It was public land. I went in the best shape I've been in a decade. I was finishing round 2 of 75 yard. I mean, I was rocking and rolling. Went in knowing that if I didn't pull my binos up and put eyes on the elk that was the one I wanted, I wasn't shooting. I didn't need the meat. It was also took a lot of discipline of seeing other ones and knowing, hey, if I shoot this one, we're in a place where it's not that hard to get out. But I have helped people pack out before, and it sucks. Going down is worse than going up. You got weight on your back and you're hammering down.
Oh,
it's hard on your shins.
Piece of shit on your quads and knees.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you because I definitely would like to talk about Ryan Off the Grid.
Mm-hmm.
That you started that business like in 2011, 2012 then?
That would have been spring of 2012. I started doing photography. And I did that for 2 years. I'd have to look it up. I bet you it was 2014 is when I started Ryan Off the Grid, is when I got asked. I had about 2 years of photography under my belt. Was making waves with waterfall photography when a Facebook acquaintance had gotten picked up with a network television and said, "Can you film?" So that's kind of when Ryan Off the Grid was born, which was an offshoot of Off the Grid photography.
So then,
which I keep them separate.
And were you like, when did you stop working in an office job?
Oh boy.
Was it before that or after that?
It was before that.
Okay.
That would have been about 2013 or 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're full time because what's the show that you guys filmed for?
The show that we were on, I think it was 3 seasons worth, was there's The Den was a show where there's 4 teams competing to win, and the winner won a year of airtime. That's kind of we won. So Backcountry Traditions came out of The Den, and then we had 2 seasons as Backcountry Traditions, so three or 4 total.
Okay.
I mean that was pretty early on. I mean, to be honest, like I didn't have a clue as to what I was doing filming wise. It was all trial and error, or talking to people that I knew that were good at production wise and editing wise, and having, if they had patience to sit down with me or answer a question, or at least point me in the right direction, utilizing your human resources, and just YouTube college, man, tutorial. Oh, this technique looks cool, like smoke fading in, or just learning how to do it via YouTube. There's a tutorial on everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
So then at that point, you're full time, like 2014, 2015. When did High Point Adventure, when did you bring that concept to life?
So that was 4 years ago. We're on our 4th year.
Okay.
A guy from Colorado had messaged me and said, hey, Instagram, never really talked to him before. Would you like to come out and shoot a mountain lion? And I was like, well, fuck yeah. But I had already shot a mountain lion in New Mexico. I shot the 30th biggest mountain lion of all time. I mean, the dogs did the work. I just pulled the trigger. Like I got lucky. So this thing is massive. I mean, it's in my living room. It takes up. That is our piece de resistance in the living room.
I think I've seen you post pictures.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a picture of me holding this mountain lion. I mean, I'm not a small man. I am struggling to keep. I mean, it's a hoss. So I'd already have a full body mountain in our living room, and mountain lion meat is actually really good. It tastes like pork. It's super lean. You got to cook it well done, but Colorado style green pork chili, or I mean anything pork related. I mean, you just substitute it. It's very good. So I would obviously eat the meat, but if I shoot a mountain lion, like I'm not going to not mount it. That's to pay someone to run dogs is going at about 8 to 10K right now for one mountain lion.
Wow.
That's what people are getting paid. Well, because the dogs are expensive. These are $40,000 dogs that can dry track. And the guys are running full packs, and dogs are getting killed every once in a while, or, I mean, there's turnover and age, gas, food to feed these things. So he says, hey, do you want to come shoot this mountain lion? Hell yeah. Then I'm laying in bed, and she's next to me, and I'm like, golly, if I kill this fucking mountain lion, and I mount it, and then we got 2 full body mountain lions, like she's very patient with the amount of stuff we have in our house. I'm like, this is not the hill I'm going to die on. So I messaged the guy back in the morning. I said, hey, you know what? Let's do a veterans hunt. Are you cool with doing a veterans hunt? He's like, hell yeah. And I said, we'll get a Purple Heart veteran. And sure enough, people kind of came out of the woodwork, and we formed a team out there and ran it, and filmed it for the TV show. It made the show. It was one of the best episodes ever, in my opinion. And then on the side of that mountain, we just said, why don't we start an organization? And it was born right there. And now we've done it all over the place. So
how many people are part of the organization?
I've got 5 board members.
Okay.
And then my wife is treasurer, and which she will let me get away with less than anybody else would. I mean, there's checks and balances to make sure that it's run correctly, and I never want to be accused of, buying anything for myself. I mean, every single person in my organization is volunteer. No one's paid, and that includes sometimes we can't even reimburse them for their travel or their hotel or gas, and so everybody that is part of it wants to be there. We got 5 board members, and then we've got people all over the country that are ready to help regionally when we have something out by them.
So when you guys take somebody on a hunt, you guys it's being financed from
Donations
yes. That come in. So do you have to actively go out and work with people to get these donations?
Yes. I hope one day that I don't even have to worry about that, and I can continue to be the face, the host, the media side of it. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you definitely have to
Buddy up with some people and
cookie jar, hand in every cookie jar to kind of make it. And opportunities come randomly too. That's why we put videos out. Every once in a while, I'll get hey, so and so wants to talk to you, and checks in the mail, because they saw the video and it struck a chord with them. I mean, I have the veterans come on. I sit them down beforehand, especially guys that have visible wounds, amputees and stuff. Say, look, I'm not here to parade you around. I'm not here to dog and pony you. I'm not here to get a gold star and pat on the back for taking you guys hunting. I know what this does because of what it did for me. I want to give this to you, and when we sit you down to do your interview, what's your name, branch of service, where you're from, and at the most, I was injured in Iraq in 2004. I don't need you to tell me you got your foot blown off. I don't need you to tell me you got shot in the shoulder. That's all we're going to talk about your injury. The only thing I want you to talk about, and usually I kind of guide them through most of the questions, and then I say, tell me what it's like to be on a veterans hunt and why this is important to you. And that's where organically they just drop like these emotional nuggets. That's all I want them to dive in. And the testimonials are what people see. They're like, holy shit.
seeing like the raw emotion behind what it means to be out there with.
I can't replicate those guys.
No, I mean,
Josh Ebert? He's a tattoo artist down in
I don't think so. No.
So he's an Army vet, never hunted before, and he was on a cool. He's my tattoo artist. He's down in the was that 5th Ward or 3rd Ward? But he had never been on a hunt before. Did hog dog with me, and he got like super emotional. And I've known him a long time, and I was not ready for it as the cameraman. But it was so raw. It was so real. I actually got out from behind the camera. We I didn't even forgot that I was filming. I was like, man, I'm like, this is what this is about. Because he's like, I came here for an experience, and he goes, this was so much more. That's cool. That for me, every hunt you'll get one guy that really sticks out that it affects deeply, and they almost have a spiritual experience.
It like feeds the soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that feeds me. If I'm not doing this, like, I don't know what the fuck I'd be doing right now.
How do you find the veterans?
Depends on the hunt, depends on the requirements, depends on what if the outfitter that's donating the hunt wants something specific. But I mean, usually we'll put it out to the public. Hey, I mean, I'll draw up some media, some flashy little picture with lettering on it, dates, and I need you to submit your discharge documents. And submit this is all I ask for, a paragraph one paragraph about your military service, and one paragraph about your hunting experience, and one paragraph about why you want to be selected specifically for this hunt. And that will usually show me enough to see who's fitting, and we'll sit down in front of the board and discuss it, and then there's a selection process there.
Okay.
Some of it's word of mouth. Some of it I have a guy in mind. I mean, Josh, the tattoo artist, hunting was not on his radar, but I knew he was an adrenaline junkie to the point where, like, the hog dogging, he was perfect for it. So, I mean, I captured it, and I didn't notice it until I was editing. The pit bull's licking his face, and this is a nasty, ugly boar hog, and he's petting the boar. The boar's dead. And he's coming to terms with killing something, but knowing that he's coming home with the food. He did the killing, not somebody at a pork plant that's running electricity through a pig's head or a bolt. He was coming through as an adult. You'll see kids at first hunt go through this, but as an adult with all these life experiences, petting this hog out of respect. And coming to terms with all that, and like he's processing all this. I didn't even notice. I'm just filming, and then I went to edit. I was like, "Whoa!" Like, yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably instrumental in what the experience you're trying to provide.
Yeah.
It's like being aware that like there's the action you're doing, and there's what's behind that action, and the meaning of it, and the consequences of it, and coming to terms with that in a way that can be fulfilling to you, but also respectful to the animal and to nature.
Yes. The kill, and this is as you grow as a hunter and grow as a human being and emotionally mature, is the least important part of a hunt. Even though, eventually if shit got bad enough and you had to kill for sustenance, then it's obviously very important.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much more to hunting historically. And then, going back to, tribes. I mean, when you had to provide, there's this like historical pull from your body as a man to that, that draws me. That draws me to hunting. It's like I'll be on a hunt up in a mountain. I mean, just like talking about the guys with all this technology we have, and I was like, man, I'm sitting up on this fucking ridge with these $3,000 binos looking for shit, and I'm just like, like imagine back in the day, like how many people have stood on this land before me and hunted these elk or hunted sheep, and I mean, I do research where I'm at to look at indigenous tribes that were in areas and look up their customs and like how they survived. And I think it's cool that I'm a guest on these lands,
Yeah. Doing something that's been done with much less.
Yeah.
Way longer ago.
And the costs and the consequences were that much higher.
I mean, like that. It's a way for men. I mean, it's a way for men and for you to connect back with something that most of us have lost and don't ever really get a chance to connect with. And as much as somebody can do something outdoors, still you do something outdoors that reminds you that we lived outdoors and had to survive outdoors at one point in time. That's huge. And I mean, the brotherhood camaraderie part of it. I mean, I go back to that. So the older I get, the more I realize, man, how important it is that you have to we desire being part of a group of people, and we desire being around like-minded guys for us to feel like a place in the world that when you give that to a veteran and they can feel it, I mean, it's got to be it's just so gratifying to know that somebody got to feel that because you were able to put on this event for them and let them feel what it's like to be around others and just be as raw as you can. I mean, I feel like that's why guys in the military, you build up such a close camaraderie with others, is because you are in such raw situations that for the rest of your life, these people are tied to this very these raw experiences of your life, and this is just a different aspect of doing that.
And I try to get guys that didn't serve together on an event because they can build that. They can carve out another little brotherhood, another little support network, and it's built on that hunt weekend. They've already got shared experiences. It may not be the same, but it's very similar. Shared combat experience, shared military experience, where they travel to. So they already know each other a little bit just based on, they know how they're going to interact. And then you mesh these personalities and you put them on a hunt together. I mean, you've built a little network. You built a separate little brotherhood, and that keeps growing. Guys that come on hunts, they want to know hey, can I volunteer at the next one? Like you need me to pick people up from the airport? I'll be there. So you can get things set up, they want to be part of it. I mean, some guys just come hang out for an hour or two. They don't even know the guys that are going to be on the next hunt. They just want to come hang out, and it's cool to see those bonds built.
That really is.
That happens between the volunteers though too. They don't know it. I'll have outfitters that'll donate a hunt. I mean, this is at prime time of their season. They are losing money, big time, and losing income to donate this hunt. And they'll say, well, I don't want I don't want this to seem like an advertisement. Don't put my name in the video. And I'm like, fuck you. You're getting in the video. You're donating this. And they leave. Those are the guys, the ones that are genuinely doing it because they want to and are not trying to benefit from it. They leave and they're like, holy shit, that was the best hunt. That was the most exciting experience. You'll see the guide or the volunteers 2-3 years later on Facebook, still interacting with the guys that are on that hunt or going on a hunt together. It's cool.
It's building lifelong friendships, lifelong connections. Yes. Do you kind of have any ideas in mind for the future of High Point Adventure? Things you want to how you want to possibly spread out more or do more, or do you?
As far as events, we're pretty loaded.
Okay.
We do need to figure out more streamlined funding, which I think is going to come here. Now that I have all the events that I want to do, some are every other year, some are yearly. In the calendar year, I'm full. I'm going to start having board members or vets run their own hunt. I'm not going to go film it.
Okay.
But if I have confidence in them, they know the drill, they know the blueprint. That I'm totally interested in. Just tell me what you need funding wise. Then I can focus more on figuring out a yearly fundraising events, which I think are more important for long-term sustainability. And if we get to the point where I can get a corporate sponsor and I can pay my volunteers travel costs, they're already donating their time. Like if I can pay their plane ticket or pay their gas, huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Because it does add up. It does add up. I don't even want to know what I've spent out of my own pocket on this. I don't want to know because I don't want my wife to know.
Don't worry about it, Jessica.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
So kind of just to, this is like a question, kind of like bring things to kind of a bit of an end here. Do you feel like prior to this period of time now where you've had such clarity with sobriety and sobriety coming from a place where it's truly from within you that you've chose to do this, it's for you're driving it through yourself, not just for other people's sake, and the clarity that comes with that. Did you used to think about the future as much, and do you feel like you think about the future more now with the level of clarity that you have and the fact that you feel like you can get so much more done?
I think about the future in terms of being around for my children and wife. Other than that, like short-term goals, maybe a long-term goal or two, just like we talked about, putting goals on paper.
Yep.
So I have something to actually work towards. But I don't have the anxiety over the future that I had before. Like I'm okay. Like I'm not. I can't control the government's bullshit actions. I can't control the media's bullshit actions. I can't control others or fate. So why am I worried about it?
So you kind of
control my own sphere of influence and the people that influence me.
So you kind of apply that same thought of, well, I don't know if I'm never going to drink again, but I know I'm not going to drink today, and it's going to be the same thing tomorrow. I know I'm not going to drink again today. So it's almost like applying that same thought, but to this of like, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I know I'm okay today, and my family, my kids are healthy, my wife is healthy, and I'm just going to get through today and then figure out what tomorrow is. So it's almost like applying that same concept.
Yeah.
Whether it's alcohol, whether it's family life, whether it's the future, I'm good today, and I'm just focusing on today, and when tomorrow gets here, I'll focus on tomorrow.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Wash, rinse, repeat. I mean, that's the best thing you can possibly do. Is there any words that you think you would give to somebody if they came up to you right now and told you they were struggling with addiction, and not just alcohol, any addiction at all, any substance abuse? What words would you give to somebody if they were to ask you for advice or help?
It gets better every day. There's a way out. What do we need to do to help you? Let's start with a plan.
So,
and I don't care if it's a stranger. If they came to me, like, we're going to figure out a plan of attack.
There is a way to figure it out. We just have to sit down and figure it out.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think the idea that things can get better is probably where a lot of people stuck in substance abuse or addiction is like they almost can't comprehend the idea that things can get better. So it's trying to just bring them to awareness that things can get better, or I've been in your place and now I know things can get better and there's no reason that you couldn't as well. Well, I really appreciate you driving down today, especially driving down from Green Bay.
No worries.
I hadn't realized you're living up there, but I really, really appreciate you driving out because this conversation was great. And I think a lot of people will really benefit from the fact that you're willing to be so raw and real about what the effect alcohol has had in your life and the effect that sobriety has had in your life. And people need to see examples of how change can happen and how it looks like for them to realize it's possible. And that's a big purpose for me with this podcast, is to talk to people to then give others, like, not a blueprint, but
tools,
or even just validation that, like, what you're going through, I'm talking to somebody right now who's going through it, and they got through it. And they're trying to tell you, I'm not somebody special that I got through it. I got through it because I'm a human just like you, and all humans have this capability to go from turmoil to try to figure out a way to prosper and to find a way to find that clarity in life and just keep putting that foot in front of another. And I think you're a great example for men, because men also need a good example of a man to look up to. And I think you're a great example of that. I think you encompass that on the family side. You encompass that on, what we want to traditionally call a masculine man. A big bearded guy with tattoos who lifts, but also hunts and does this cool stuff. That I think you're a good role model for men, young and old, of like what that means. So I'm for whatever it means, I'm proud of you that you've been able to get to this place, and I think it's fucking awesome. Like I said, I've noticed it over the past few years of like your journey, and I've seen like little changes just from social media from you that made you somebody that popped in my mind when I was thinking about men's mental health and all this. And when you started posting about 75 Hard more recently too, I was like, man, like he really is, like he is on that path. And like it was awesome to see. And when you said you were doing a second round on social media, I was like, dude, he's really on it. He's kicking ass. Like this is great. I think that you're, again, a great role model for people to see what it means to go from things being hard to working on them to be better. And a lot of it is effort, and a lot of it is effort. Just focus on the next day, or this day and the next day, not what's going to happen in 2 months. Fuck what's going to happen in 2 months. What's going to happen today or tomorrow?
Well, I mean, when you asked me to be on, it was, I do a podcast for the hunting world, probably at least 3 a month.
Okay.
And some people may be aware a little bit, but that's not the line of questioning. And that's I was excited to be able to put my story out, have people know the background and help anybody who it may help. Know that people, more than I answer everything within reason on social media in my inbox. But I mean, just to tackle this subject and put it out there is huge. I mean, I know how bad it can suck, but I do want you to do the outro, put on Team America, the man song. Now he's a man.
That I can do.
It just popped in my head. I'm like, you should do that for everybody though. Like,
right. If YouTube wouldn't kick me, probably some kind of copyright bullshit.
They always
right?
do. No,
yeah,
you'd be all right.
Yeah. I'll find it. I'll find the right audio clip for it. That's great, Team America.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Well, thanks again. I appreciate you coming out.
This
was an absolute pleasure, man.
It.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah.
If you guys enjoyed today's podcast, tune in and subscribe. This is the last podcast of the year, and next year I'm probably going to start doing a thing where I'll drop one a month. I'll probably do like 12 episodes a season and drop one a month. But so if you guys enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and otherwise have a great rest of your day.
Sweet.
Fuck yeah, brother.
Dude, that was a good one.
Man, thanks again.
No problem.
This was fucking perfect.